Let's call the meeting to order. Thank you for being here, and we will commence with roll call. Amy?
Chair Tuck? Regent Robinson?
Present.
Regent Cheesy? Here. Regent Williams? Present. Regent Johnson?
Here.
Regent Krause?
Here.
Regent Albrecht? Here. Commissioner Fisher?
Here.
Governor Bullock is going to be represented by Dr. Bryan, who will join us later. And then the superintendent's office is represented by Steve Burke, who will also join us later.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Let's begin our meeting with a formal welcome by Chancellor Nook. Chancellor?
Thank you, Regent Chair Tufts, members of the Board of Regents, Commissioner Clayton. Welcome to Montana State University Billings, and in particular, the City College campus. To begin with, I would like to show a video that will introduce you to the colleges within the MSU Billings campus and some of our students.
For me to pick a school, I picked MSU Billings for its academic access and excellence.
I saw it as a way to reinvent myself, and when I stepped onto campus, it totally changed my life.
I didn't know what I wanted to study at first, but MSUB has really helped me discover my career path.
I transferred to MSUB because I saw endless opportunities to succeed and grow.
I chose MSU Billings for a better life for myself and for my children.
I'm the first person in my family to go to college.
For me, it was about independence and challenging myself.
MSUB has opened a whole new learning experience for me.
Good morning, everyone. Let's begin. Online learning has allowed me the flexibility to pursue my degree while working full-time.
The faculty really want to see you succeed, and they're passionate about what they teach.
I've gotten so much individual attention from my professors and in the Academic Support Center.
No matter what you're interested in, there are more than 150 programs to fit your career aspirations, whether you're going for a certificate, an associate's, bachelor's, or a master's degree.
MSUB has just opened up so many doors academically, professionally, and personally.
My business internship turned into a full-time career.
I was named a Goldwater Scholar for my research in biology.
Our team won the regular season, and our coach was named Women's Basketball Coach of the Year.
I placed first at the State Skills USA competition and in the top 10 at the national level.
City College's welding program has hands-on training for an in-demand career.
Studying abroad in Europe gave me an opportunity to learn about myself, meet new people, and experience new cultures.
The College of Education has really prepared me for my future as a professional educator, and I start my career as a kindergarten teacher this fall.
The Mental Health Counseling Program has a 90% job placement after graduation.
MSUB has 17 intercollegiate sports, more than any other university in the state.
I'm proud to be a part of such a diverse community of people and business and arts and culture.
We're in an urban setting with close proximity to some of Montana's best skiing and outdoor adventure.
With more than 10,000 alumni living and working in Yellowstone County, Yellow Jacket Pride is everywhere.
With the support of my family, my tribe, and the MSUB community, I'm able to reach a high note.
It's a real-world education.
It's not just about getting a degree, it's about going out and changing the world.
Welcome to Montana State University Billings. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Dean of City College, Rita Kratke, to offer some welcome and give you some of the facilities tour that you'll need.
Well, thank you and welcome. As the Interim Dean of City College, it's my pleasure on behalf of all of City College to welcome and host you over the next couple of days. I would like to draw your attention to a couple items. One is City College is celebrating our 45th anniversary this year. And that's how we began as Billings Vocational Technical College. And then we joined in 1995 MSU Billings as the College of Technology. And you know us today as City College MSU Billings. So welcome to that celebration. Secondly, we would also like to acknowledge that the last time we hosted the Board of Regents was in 2007. And at that point, this building was still just completing its construction. So we are very pleased to be able to host you today in the Health Sciences building after its completion. Finally, we would also like to invite you over the next couple of days to visit our 9/11 memorial, which is just outside the entrance of this building. That was constructed out of the joint efforts of City College faculty, as well as staff, students, veterans, and our business community partners in Billings and around the state of Montana. We would also like to invite you to share our 9/11 memorial photo exhibit by the Montana National Guard, which is in our lobby. And finally, I would like to just mention a few housekeeping items. One, the Regents luncheon and breakfasts will be hosted in room 127, which is down our north corridor hall here, as well as our business center is on the second floor down the south hall in our south conference room, as well as restrooms are located on the north and south hallways just outside of the lobby, and our elevator is to the north end of the lobby. So welcome to City College. Enjoy your visit.
Thank you, Rita. Before going to this first slide, I'd like to introduce our new Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Joe Oravec. Joe is joining us most recently from the University of Nebraska at Kearney, and we're very happy to have him as a member of my leadership team. I'd like to introduce you to a few of our outstanding faculty. You met one of them this morning in Bruce Brumley. He's an instructor in our here at City College in our computer networking program. He was recently named Cisco's #1 network instructor in US and Canada. You might wonder, well, exactly how many instructors of networking are there that Cisco might have considered for this? The answer is 4,000. He's #1 of 4,000 considered by Cisco for this honor. So congratulations to Bruce Brumley. Kelly Buck is the director of our TRIO Student Services program, and she was named National Association Professional Woman VIP Woman of the Year. Part of that was due to the fact that the students in our SSS program showed a 17 percentage point increase in retention rates since she's become the director of that program. Finally, Coach Kevin Wooden, as you saw in the video, we had an outstanding basketball team this year, women's basketball team. They won the conference. They were also an extremely talented academic team. Coach Wooden was named Coach of the Year for the GNAC. His team had a 3.65 GPA, and his teams in the last 5 years have always finished in the top 25 of the NCAA Division II academic rankings. So more than just a coach, a tremendous leader and developer of young women, and making sure that those young women make it in the classroom and are as successful, and in this case, even more successful than they are on the court. They competed at the Sweet 16 this year as well, so just a tremendous job by Coach Wooden and his team. As many of you know, we've been approved to start the construction of a Yellowstone Hall project. We have the funding from the state. We need to go out and raise $5 million. We're in the processes of that. At the moment, we've received about $650,000. We hope to have most of that $5 million raised by this time next year. We just received a $250,000 gift from the Stillwater Mine Company. So it's got us on our way, and we hope that by this time next year we will be ready to start the drawings and drafting phase. I want to talk just a little bit about our students, because as I got here and started to look at the data, I found that this institution is different than any institution I've worked at in the past. And this data shows us that a little bit. Most institutions that I've been at, comprehensive universities, when you look at the 6-year graduation rate and you find out how many students graduate in 6 years and how many more students are still enrolled after 6 years, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4%. This is data that takes last year's graduating class, actually the 2012-13 graduates, and says, how long did it take them to graduate? And what you see is that almost 20% took 8 or more years, and almost 10% took 7 or more years. As we look at the way students interact with our campus, what we find is that many of our students are full-time, but they're full-time part of the time. They're busy with lives. I met a young woman just the other day walking across campus with her 3-year-old son and a little infant and her husband. And I started to play with the 3-year-old. He was cute. He had on a nice little Aloha shirt and shorts. It was kind of fun. But I talked to the mother, and she said, while I was a student here, I became pregnant with my eldest, and I had to stop. We didn't have the finances to continue. So I raised these two to where now she can return to school, and she was on campus trying to set this up again. And that is sort of typical for the students on our campus, which is very different. We have a very much a come for a little while, come full-time, and then continue a little later because life gets in the way. They have jobs to go to, they have families to raise, and it's very different than the typical 18 to 22 or 23-year-old institution that most of us think about when we think about higher education. One of the other things that I found is that, and I found this with most regents, most community members, they believe that the students who aren't retained are students who haven't been able to cut it academically on a campus. And on this campus, that's not true. It's true, not true on most campuses, but it's startling on this campus. And what this data shows is that for the 2013 freshman class, 60% of them were retained. We'd like to get that number higher. We have a tremendous opportunity to do that because the 40% that weren't retained, only 4.5% were academically ineligible to return. Only 4.5% of that freshman body. So we've got 147 students out there that we need to work much more closely with to get them back to this campus. Some have transferred, some have had to step out for financial or personal reasons, but there are others that we know that we can attract back to campus. This year's priorities, I want to make sure the Regents understand where we're going. We have 4. Number 1 is fund Yellowstone Hall, improve our student success measures, in particular our retention rates and our graduation rates, create an achievable enrollment growth plan. We have seen 4 years of declining enrollments on this campus. We need to get that turned around. It is impacting our budget. And then move forward with implementing this campus's really well-defined and embraced by everyone strategic plan known as Discovering the MSUB Advantage Plan. A couple of upcoming events. Our College of Business has come up with the idea of starting the Montana Business Hall of Fame, and we will be inaugurating the first class coming up this October. We'll have a guest speaker. Rudy Giuliani will be in to be the keynote speaker for that event. You're all invited to come. Those who are willing to offer up $1,000 to join our foundation will have an opportunity for a book signing and personal visit with Rudy following the presentation. So we'll use that $1,000 to build Yellowstone Hall, so everybody come. Immediately following the Regents meeting, starting Friday evening, is the Not in Our State. This is a grassroots summit on sexual assault that really grew out of a student movement and has been moving from campus to campus. It's our turn to host it this year. I really encourage all of you that can, regents, public, members of the university communities, to attend the summit if at all possible. We will be visiting the Montana Zoo, Zoo Montana, as part of the Regent meeting this evening for a reception. Wonderful facility. We will have it kind of to ourselves. The zoo closes at 5 o'clock. We'll arrive at 5:30, and they said they're going to leave the animals out until 7. So we'll have an opportunity to have an up-close and behind-the-scenes look at the zoo tonight. In your book, in some of your packets, you received the history of Montana State University Billings, called Yellowstone in Blue. The first 75 years, it was written by Sue Hart. Sue recently passed away, and she's a remarkable woman. About 3 weeks ago, she passed away. You know, most of our faculty and staff, if they work at a university for 40 years, you just can't figure out how that's even possible. Sue's tenure was 53 years. 53 years as a faculty member. She didn't start here when she was 18. She started here as a faculty member, and tremendous human being. Welcomed people to her home, often encouraged young faculty members who couldn't travel home for Thanksgiving to meet with her family for Thanksgiving. Often asked homeless people to join them at those meetings. Just a tremendous soul. It touched the lives of many students, but also other faculty. The outpouring of faculty at her memorial service, what she meant to them, was outstanding. Before I say thank you, I'd like to do a couple things. First of all is to ask Dr. Stacy Klippenstein, Dr. John Seck, and Regent Fran Albrecht to stand. And these three individuals are MSUB alums. And we have alumni pins for you. And our alumni director, Sarah Brockle, has your pins. She'll bring those around. So thank you for serving MUS from the perspective of an MSUB alum. And finally, let Sarah get the pins around. This past spring, we have one new alum from MSUB that's pretty special. And we're going to ask Chair Tuss and Commissioner Christian to help us present a diploma to Amy D'Amato, who graduated this spring. She got her slipcover, but like everybody else, she got her slipcover, but not her diploma. So Amy, would you join the commissioner and the chair? Amy serves as the commissioner's executive assistant, and we were very proud to have her as an alum and have her attend our ceremony. And it's also just a great thrill to surprise her just a little bit. So thank you, Regents. Thank you, Commissioner, and wish you the very best with your stay and your activities here in Billings and at Montana State University Billings.
Thank you, Chancellor Nook. And congratulations, Amy. We were a little worried about that. We thought it may have gotten lost in the mail. Congratulations, Amy. I want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to our September meeting and also to a new school year. It's great to be here at City College, and I want to extend a well-deserved thank you to everyone who had a hand in making our meeting possible. These meetings don't just happen. They take a lot of hard work, so thank you to the faculty, staff, and students at City College for hosting this meeting and for managing the multiple tasks associated with the production of this magnitude. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Rita Kratke, who has served as interim dean here at City College since June of this year. Welcome and thank you. The last time we met at this institution, as was noted earlier, was in May of 2005, before this building was even constructed. It's nice to be here today amid tremendous back-to-school energy, and that goes for all of our campuses at every one of Montana's 16 public universities and colleges. As we celebrate the start of school, it's also appropriate to celebrate our system's 47,000 students who are working hard to improve their lives, their communities, and their future. Thank you for allowing the Montana University System to be part of your success. At this meeting, we have a couple of familiar faces joining us in new roles. Longtime Dean of Education at the University of Montana, Bobby Evans, is serving this year as Interim Chancellor at Western. Also, longtime Dean of the College of Technical Sciences at MSU Northern, Greg Kegel, is serving that institution as Interim Chancellor as well. Thanks to both of you for your service, your enthusiasm, and for your willingness to lead these two tremendous institutions at this time. For many years, the two highest priorities on this board's long-range building agenda has been the construction of a new Missoula College and a major renovation of the Life Sciences building at MSU Billings. This summer, we were all excited to see the breaking of ground for the Missoula College project and the launch of a capital campaign here in Billings to raise the private match for a state appropriation for the Life Sciences building. It is exciting to see these projects move forward, both focused on state-of-the-art teaching and learning. This investment in new classrooms and labs for our students is a big deal. Congratulations to both MSU Billings and Missoula College for your work on these important educational facilities. Finally, we are launching forward into our first academic year under the performance funding model associated with our state general fund appropriation. A portion of the board's allocation of general funds to campuses this year was derived using each school's performance related to student retention and completion. The focus on these areas has been positive and encouraging. A performance-based funding component is critical to our goals in the Complete College Montana initiative. Complete College Montana is a major driver of our state's ambitious goal to increase the percentage of Montana residents who hold a college credential from about 40% to 60% over the next few years. For everyone who played a part in the successful rollout of our performance funding component, thank you for your great work. That concludes my formal remarks. I know that we have a very busy 2 days ahead of us, so let's get started. We're now at the point in the agenda where at 8:20, approval of minutes, and we do have minutes from our July 10th conference call. Is there a motion by the Board of Regents?
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Albrecht. Is there discussion from the Board of Regents? Discussion amongst campuses, public comment. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. I will now look for introductions to the various campuses, if there are any. Dr. Engstrom.
Thank you, Chair Tuss. Good morning, everyone. I do have 3 introductions that I would like to make, although I just got scooped on one of them, Regent Tuss, and that was Dean Roberta Evans. Let me just make a comment. I'm so grateful that Dean Evans, who is the Dean of the Phyllis J. Washington College of Education and Human Sciences on the Missoula campus, did agree to take on the interim leadership at Western. I'm so happy for her to provide her with this opportunity, but also to provide Western with great leadership. Those of you who know Dean Evans, or Bobby as we call her, know that she is bringing just endless, boundless energy to the job and unrepentant optimism to whatever she does. And she is making the people at Western feel really good about where they are headed and positioning Western to hire a great chancellor. That search is underway. Susan Briggs is chairing that search committee. We have had tremendous outpouring of applications for that job. It's a very attractive job, so we're quite optimistic that we're going to get an outstanding chancellor. So, Bobby, I just want to say thank you in public here, too, for the work that you're doing there. And we already applauded you, so I won't ask the group to do that again, but thank you. I would also like to introduce someone who is new to the Missoula campus, Nathan Lindsay. Nathan, would you stand, please? Nathan is our new Associate Provost for Dynamic Learning at the Missoula campus. Nathan comes to us from the University of Missouri in Kansas City, and one of the especially attractive characteristics of Nathan is a tremendous background and interest in the areas of assessment and accreditation. So we already have him tied into the Northwest Commission. He'll be going out this fall for evaluator training, and he'll be heading up our accreditation and assessment effort at the campus. So join me in welcoming Nathan to Missoula. I have one other introduction then to make this morning, and that is Andrew Ware, who some of you know. Andrew, would you please stand, Andrew? When I became president, we launched a Presidential Leadership Fellow program where we bring someone in from the faculty or staff for the year and involve that person in both a special project as well as a professional development opportunity. And so one of the products of that leadership program is Neil Moisey sitting over there, so you can see the caliber of people that we bring in. Andrew is working this year on what we call the Academic Alignment and Innovation Program, a holistic view of our academic portfolio. And so Andrew is heading up that project, and at the same time will be involved in Regents meetings and other professional development activities. Many of you know Andrew because he was the president of our faculty senate a few years back and attended these meetings in the role that Professor Lodmill is now. So Neil, thank you, or Andrew, thank you for your work, and welcome as well. Mr. Chair, I'll have one more introduction tomorrow. Our new Title IX officer will be here for the event afterwards, and I'll introduce her tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, President Engstrom. Are there further introductions on the MSU side? Dr. Grisato.
Chairman Tuss, good morning, members of the board. I also have 3 introductions to make this morning, and also tomorrow we will be introducing our new director of the Office of Institutional Equity and our Vice President for Student Success. They will be joining us tomorrow. But today I also want to add my congratulations to former Dean Greg Kegel. You know Greg very well. Greg is a product of Havre, educated at Montana State University Northern, and he has served with distinction. Actually, I would say that Greg is one of the most successful deans that I have met in my career. Very effective, very focused on developing faculty, very interested in students, serving the community, and also having extraordinary record with outside constituencies and developing good relationships with corporations. Just a list of some of the national and international businesses that Greg has worked with and obtained funding from, like Kuwait, Caterpillar, Wärtsilä, Fairbanks Morse, Foundation Coal, General Electric, Toyota, Ford, are just a little sample of how successful Greg has been in attracting these corporations and telling the story. He's not talking about himself. He's talking to them about how these corporations can partner with MSU Northern in building a very strong academic program. So I'm absolutely delighted and honored to have an opportunity to work closer with Greg now. So welcome to. We also have in the audience our new president and CEO of the MSU Alumni Foundation, Chris Murray, just joined us. He has been counting the days. I think that it's still under 2 weeks. Is that right? Exactly. And Chris comes from University of Idaho, where he led a very successful comprehensive campaign. And since day one, and even before day one, he has been just a force of nature. He brings a lot of enthusiasm, great passion for the job, extraordinary skills in forging relationships, and also an uncanny ability to allow us to tell this story to our alumni and to people who want to continue to strengthen Montana State University. I'm delighted to say that we have a great partnership with the MSU Alumni Association. And in Chris, I have found another partner in excellence, and I look forward to working with him. Welcome, Chris. You might remember our faculty fellow, Paul Gore, who joined us for an entire year from University of Utah. And one of his legacy projects was to help me establish a presidential faculty leadership program at Montana State University. So we formulated a process, a selection criteria, we put together a committee, and finally we conducted a process for requests for proposals of faculty members at Montana State University who will be interested in shadowing the president and the provost for an entire year. And I'm delighted to also introduce in a new capacity Dr. Bob Makwa, who you know very well, a faculty member from civil engineering, an outstanding faculty leader who served Faculty Senate with distinction. I need to say that I'm trying to draw every drop of blood from him. But in reality, what is happening is I'm learning valuable leadership lessons from Bob. So welcome, Bob, and thanks for accepting this task.
Thank you, President Cruzado, and welcome to all those new hires. We welcome you to the Montana University system, and thank you for your service. We are now going to go to that part on the agenda focused on the 100th anniversary of MSU Extension. And Mr. Jeff Bader is here to walk us through this. Welcome.
Chairman Tuss, members of the board, I want to thank you for this opportunity to present a topic of which I am very proud. As you may be aware, 2014 is the centennial year of the cooperative extension system across the country. MSU Extension has been celebrating our first 100 years all over Montana at special centennial events, county fairs, and agricultural research center celebrations. I've been meeting with, as I got here in February, I've been traveling all across the state, meeting with county extension faculty, extension specialists, and the people we serve. And I have to say that the things that I've seen and experienced really make me proud to be a citizen of this state, and a member of such a great organization. The capstone to all of these events will be a dinner celebration at our annual Extension Conference on October 20th. You all will be getting your invitations in the next few days. And to kick off the dinner and get everybody in a celebratory mood, Extension produced a short video with the help of our friends at PBS, and I think some of the camera folks here helped put this together for us. And since you've been so kind to formally recognize this milestone in our history, I thought it was appropriate that this be the world premiere of Extension across generations across Montana. I hope you enjoy it.
In 2014, Montana State University Extension celebrates the 100th anniversary of the Smith-Lever Act, which established the Cooperative Extension Service, a network of educators extending university research and knowledge to the people. MSU Extension programs in agriculture and natural resources, community development, family and consumer science, and 4-H youth development support local communities across generations across Montana.
Albert Schweitzer said, "I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have found a way to serve."
Being born into an Extension family, it has been the center of our activities for as long as I can remember.
Since its inception in 1914, Extension has enhanced the quality of life for families and communities.
Finding answers and solutions, looking for research-based information, connecting people to opportunities. I love getting to work for Montana State University Extension because the work I do is important to the people I serve.
I made the decision to expand my business and contacted a specialist at MSU Extension. MSU Extension was instrumental in helping me build my farm business into what it is today.
Through 4-H, I was taught the importance of hard work and giving back to my community, my country, and my world.
MSU Extension connects people together to help others find their true potential.
One should never quit being a lifelong learner. Through Extension, that door is always open.
Through 4-H and other Extension-sponsored programs, I've learned to become a better public speaker, to lend a helping hand wherever it may be needed, and most importantly, to be a leader.
Montana State University Extension.
Montana State University Extension.
Montana State University Extension.
Across generations.
Across Montana.
Across Montana.
Across Montana.
Across Montana.
In 2014, Montana...
There, we'll watch it again. That's fine. Again, I'm very proud of our people, and thank you folks at PBS. If any of you were the camera folks, you did a great job. Since I'll have an opportunity to talk to you more about our system this afternoon during the budget presentations, I won't take any more time this morning, but I look forward to visiting with you this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Jeff, thank you for that presentation, and congratulations on 100 years. You don't have to go very far in Montana to know the impact of Extension. Thank you for all you do for our state and every corner of our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now I'm going to turn the floor over to the Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair Tuss. I too would like to extend a welcome back to the fall semester. Fall's an exciting time of year in Montana, agricultural-based state. It's exciting to see calves coming in and crops coming in and all that happens, and certainly that extends to the Montana University system. We have students returning. Had the pleasure to attend Bozeman Convocation, and man, it's so incredibly exciting to see the look and the glow on students' faces and families as they know they enter these institutions across the state to change their lives. It's exciting to attend the Missoula College groundbreaking ceremony, and you have a mother and her child who was in tears just from the excitement of what will be and what can happen at those institutions. And it clearly is an exciting time around the campuses. I was at Education Local Government Subcommittee hearings yesterday, and we get a chance to talk some about education and what we're trying to do. And I think the sign driving in here this morning speaks volumes to what we are trying to do in MSUB's slogan of access and excellence. We're trying to provide in a Montana public university system access to every student, and we need to find a way to help those students succeed. And that's very important to me. I think it's very important to all of you that work in the system. And clearly, it's an important piece to our legislative delegation. They want to see students have the opportunity, but they want to see us find a way to help students succeed, a way to change their lives. And I think that rings loud and clear. I think there is tremendous support for the Montana University system, both from within the system but across Montana, with legislative delegation, with the governor's office. Education clearly has an importance, and I think policymakers around the state understand that importance, which sort of leads us to one of the kind of main topics that we've worked on in the last year, and that is this research initiative or agenda, and bringing a bit more prominence to the research activity that's happened around the state. I think that is something that has been embraced by the governor and also by our legislative delegation. We've worked for the last 6 months or a year to boost the presence of the Commissioner's office in this discussion and ultimately try to lend support to what is already a very robust $160 million a year enterprise. But we've created hopefully some new direction and new enthusiasm behind research. I've asked Deputy Commissioner Neil Moisey to lead this charge. He's doing so with the help of Cindy Orser from our office, with the 2 or 3 research VPs from around the system, Scott Wittenberg, Renee Pera, and Beverly Hartline from Tech. I think that group is really putting some depth and color behind what I think is a very robust research initiative, and one that will serve Montana well. We had a chance to go around the state, visit Bozeman, Missoula, and Tech during the summer with a group of legislative delegations, business leaders, people from kind of all walks and breadths of Main Street, Montana, and we were able to show what is currently going on in the state. We're able to show what is possible in the state, and I think we tried to demonstrate how it ties into everything we've heard within the governor's Main Street Montana project, and that is these are important things to Montana, and they open doors for us both as a state in terms of our economy, but also for the citizens that live here. And so we're working to push that research agenda forward. I think we made good strides. I think that the tour was very successful in that I think people that started with a fairly flat or benign thoughts of what research does in Montana, as we all huddled in the parking lot trying to avoid a Montana thunderstorm, there's people saying, no, I get it. This is important. It's a huge driver for Montana's economy and a huge driver for educational opportunities in Montana. And so I think we made some headway, and we'll see that initiative continue to move forward. Time will tell what exactly that statement means. But I know it's important to the Montana University system. I know it's important to Montana, and we'll continue to try to bring as much life to that idea as we possibly can. With that, I would ask Deputy Commissioner Seck if he would make a few comments regarding a SWAMI update.
Thank you, Commissioner Christian, members of the board. As you recall, on this day last year in Butte, we received the announcement of the TAC 3 grant known as SWAMI for $25 million. And a lot of work has been done on behalf of the 13-member consortium since then. And I'd like to give a shout out to Dean Wolf and Director Matt Springer, who have been leading that effort. The grant was finalized from the U.S. Department of Labor in December, following the government shutdown, which slowed us down just a little bit, but not too badly. But this grant has really been focusing on creating fundamental shifts and how we do business in two-year education, particularly with respect to Certificate of Applied Science and Associate of Applied Science degrees, and looking at ways to provide students with both on-ramps and off-ramps in those programs. And I'll just give you an example. A student completing one semester in welding now will have the opportunity to complete a Certificate of Technical Studies and an NCC-ER certificate, giving them tangible tools and recognition after just 16 weeks to compete for employment and go to work. But since they are stackable, the student will then be able to hop back in and continue on to complete a higher degree. We've embedded these industry-recognized credentials across the curriculum. We have 7 occupational programs which are aligned at the SWAMI colleges. These programs have been aligned across participating colleges in order to provide consistent core learning outcomes and industry-recognized credentials throughout the state. And those programs are, and they are beginning this fall, welding and welding fabrication, machining, industrial electronics, industrial safety, industrial maintenance, entrepreneurship, and diesel technology. We have 4 industry-recognized credentials in place this fall, and they include the National Center for Construction Education and Research, NCCER, the National Institute for Metalworking Skills, NIMS, and Electronics Technicians Association, ETA, and of course CDL, Commercial Driver's License. This will allow for better opportunities for transfer among the students between colleges if they so choose. Another major accomplishment of the program is that $4.5 million of equipment have been approved for purchase. We heard about that in the faculty breakfast this morning, and another $1.5 million are expected to be approved in the next 2 months for equipment purchases. I'm pleased to report that now over 100 business and industries are involved with the SWAMI project. In fact, next week in Helena, Dean Wolf, Commissioner Busey, and I will be convening those 100 business representatives of those 100 businesses in Helena. This fall, our consortium will successfully launch over 80% of the 40-plus planned stacked credential programs this term, impacting an estimated 600 SWAMI students this fall. Over 300 students will receive coaching services this fall with an expected 5 to 10% retention improvement. Finally, we have actively incorporated the work of the SWAMI into Main Street, Montana. Our work has been incorporated into 3 sector strategies of Main Street, Montana, including manufacturing, energy, and utilities. By January, we will report back to you some concrete results with the implementation of these programs and industry-recognized credentials.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Seck. Mr. Chair, as you know, we certainly took the lead of the Board of Regents, making certain that every student across the Montana University system would have access to important training and educational opportunities with regards to alcohol, sexual assault, and financial literacy. And I have Ron Muffick here to speak toward the updates on EverFi implementation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. About a year ago, we convened the student affairs officers from around the system. And our group identified the 3 issues that the commissioner just mentioned as barriers to student success: sexual assault, alcohol use, and financial literacy or financial education. We set ourselves to address these issues, and one of the tools that we came up with was to contract with a company called EverFi that provides online modules or online programs for students to complete. So at the May meeting, you may recall, we showed some demos of the products. We advised the board that we were looking at these products. We'd gone through the purchasing process, and we would be implementing them for the fall of 2014. I'm pleased to report that all units of the MUS and 2 of the 3 community colleges have already implemented the sexual assault trainings and the alcohol education trainings for this fall, and with the remaining community college going to implement it next week. What we targeted was all students under 21 for the alcohol product, and all new and returning students who previously hadn't completed the sexual assault tutorials, because some students had transferred because Bozeman and Tech had already implemented these, and Missoula had their PETSA product. So we targeted all new students and returning students who hadn't completed that. So we've had thousands of students that have been sent emails and told that they need to complete these products before next semester. In addition, we have a financial literacy product that campuses are implementing this fall. The financial literacy product we're going to do a little bit different. We're going to target the students that are determined to be at risk, and we're going to let campuses work with our financial education program managers to determine who those students might be. But campuses did a great job implementing this in such a short time frame. When we looked at May, when we talked about this at the Board of Regent meeting, EverFi assured us that they could get this done by the fall. They did a good job with that. Our campuses did an exceptional job, as I said. And so now we have a significant tool now that we can use to help our students. It's not a silver bullet, but it does provide our students with information, help them make informed decisions, hopefully change some behaviors. And it'll provide us some data that we can analyze and relate to student behavior and assist us with some federal compliance and with some programming for the future. So all in all, it's been we've had a few bumps in the roads as far as some students not being that pleased that they have to complete a 45-minute module or a couple of those. But all in all, it's something that we feel is very important for the system and for our campuses to address these significant barriers. That completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Muffick. I think everybody knows by now that this is a very high priority for this board and has been for some time. So I really want to thank you for your leadership in implementing this. I know there's a couple questions I think here from the board. The first one that I have is, obviously this is new to our system. Can you talk about, even anecdotally perhaps, any information that we know about from other systems that have used this particular system?
Certainly, Chairman Tuss. There's 500 campuses around the country that use these products, at least the alcohol product. There's a couple hundred that use the 500 use the alcohol product, 200 use the Haven product, less use the Transit, which is the financial literacy product. In addition, MSU Bozeman's been using the product for about 8 years, and Montana Tech, I think 3 or 4 years. Looking at Bozeman's data and looking at Tech's data, it's really significant, the reporting that we can get for this, and you can really see if you have the students take the programs before they get to campus and after, you can really see how you can impact some behavior and some attitudes from students. Nationally, this is something it's not going to go away. We're continuing to see more requirements from the federal government in needing to provide this kind of programmatic information to students. Campuses around, I believe, Dr. Orovic, I think is how you pronounce it, from Billings. He was at Nebraska Kearney, and he said they used it there, and they've had some significant achievements with that as well. So I think we went with the best in breed as far as any product that's out there, and it's going to do nothing but improve.
Thank you. Regent Williams.
Thank you, Chair Tuss. I had a couple of things to comment on. I spoke with the Montana Associated students and got some feedback from some of my colleagues there and then some of my friends and colleagues on the University of Montana campus. And I think the largest issue that stood out was for upperclassmen students who were returning to campus, a little bit curious about the tutorials and how all of that was working and why they would need to take it. But I think in the future, as the returning students are going to be taking it, or as the returning students won't be taking it, it'll just be incoming students, I think that those complaints will subside, and I think that's a good method. I would hope that that would be communicated a little bit better to students on campuses. There are a large number of students who believe that they'll need to take these tutorials every year, so I would hope that our campus administrations can communicate that to their students, that they're doing this once and it's good for them. I'm glad that we're implementing this product, but that they won't need to do it again. And then my second question, I guess now I have a question. Excuse me, anyway. So I'm curious about students under 21 who are transferring from institution to institution. I heard from Miles Community College that they have students who take courses at multiple institutions and that they're being required to take these modules at multiple institutions. Is there a way that we can facilitate the transfer of that, the completion of this product between those two institutions, so they wouldn't need to complete the 2-hour module and then the hour module for each campus they attend?
Mr. Chair, Regent Williams, let me address the first comment that you made. This first year where we were kind of playing catch up, the idea is that those students who were already on campus, we wanted to make sure that they got the information as well as the new students. So going forward, the upperclassmen will have already completed the modules, so they won't be required to do that. As far as coordinating, that's something I'm working with the student affairs officers. What we've done now, we've had discussions about if a student's already completed at another school. Basically, if they tell the coordinator at their campus, hey, I completed this when I went to Bozeman last year, because we've had this already, and say they're in talking to the dean of students at Montana Tech, he can just verify that through Bozeman and then count them as having completed it. We need to develop a better process as it gets bigger. What we've done is we put together a contact list, or we're in the process of putting together a contact list. We'll get that out to everyone so that they can coordinate with their partners throughout the system.
Great, thank you, I appreciate it.
One thing, if I could add, Chairman Tuss, the fact that students are talking about it is a win for us. Even if they're complaining, and I've been getting a number of emails on the weekend from students who have navigated the MUS website and found me and said, hey, how come I'm taking this? Can't you tell my campus I don't need to take this for various reasons? And of course I refer to the campus, but the fact that students are writing articles in the Kaiman, for example, complaining about it, or that they're having that discussion is a win for us, that it's actually on people's radar. Thanks.
Thank you. Regent Johnstone.
Chair Tuss, thank you. Could you comment a little bit more on why you decided to require the financial literacy course only for, quote, at-risk students, and maybe tell us a little bit about how you define at-risk?
Certainly, Chairman Tuss, Regent Johnstone. We're going to do a presentation tomorrow on the financial literacy education program, and we'll provide some more detail on that, certainly. What we did in the first year was we looked at, we were concerned that if we put 3 of these modules right up front, that it could become kind of a barrier to access for some students, and it would become a bit too cumbersome. We really wanted to address the sexual assault and alcohol first. The financial literacy education is an important piece, of course. But we're kind of using this first year as kind of a pilot or a test with these at-risk groups. And then in next year, we're kind of leaning towards making it a requirement for all, just like alcohol, EDU, and the Haven product. The financial literacy people, how we're targeting them, our campuses have done a really good job as we've developed the financial literacy education program over the last couple of years of analyzing data and looking at students that, for example, maybe have borrowed above the loan limits for how many credits they've completed. Or even, I think MSU Bozeman has gone into looking at data of those who get an extreme amount of parking tickets, seem to be the types that also have some issues academically and with their finances. So we've gotten pretty creative with that. But we are taking the financial education piece seriously, and we're looking at that product being much more mainstream next year.
Regent Sheehy.
Thank you, Chairman Tuss. I'm familiar with the modules that are in place right now for the sexual assault and the alcohol, and they seem to focus on training. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Regent Sheehy, that's correct.
Okay. Is there anything in place in the models that we have right now that tracks results? And have we established any kind of basis for tracking results? Do we have a goal that we're trying to reach with these? Is it knowledge per individual student that can be tested? Is it a decline in the number of sexual assaults, a decline in the number of alcohol-related incidents? What's our goal, and are we tracking it?
Chairman Tuss and Regent Sheehy, our ultimate goal would be to educate students here so that they can make appropriate decisions. decisions that don't put themselves in situations that cause harm to each other and cause issues. We do have data that shows behavior from when they take the pre-test and when they take the post-test. So our goal initially is to look at how, have some data to analyze for one thing, because we don't have that. We haven't had that data historically throughout the system to look at and go, okay, what are we dealing with here? We hear a lot of anecdotal things, but we want to have some actual hard data where we can say, okay, students' attitudes are this at the beginning, they're this at the end. Here's how we can target our programming going forward to make the greatest impact. Realistically, the more we get the information out on sexual assaults, and we could potentially see an increase in reported sexual assaults. It doesn't mean there's more. It's just that people are talking more about it and have become more comfortable in being able to report. So, ideally we would eradicate the problem, but I don't know how realistic that is.
So can we track whether the attitudinal changes continue over time? Is there a way to retest or track whether those attitudinal changes that you're seeing in the initial testing or initial module continue?
Chair Test, Regent Sheehy. I believe our next step will be to look at campus surveys. That's something that we're going to see going forward. The federal government's kind of leaning towards requiring us to do that anyway, but it's kind of a next logical step to say, okay, here's what we've done so far, here's what the data is we have from EverFi, but we can supplement now with some campus surveys and see how the climate has changed.
I think that'd be interesting data.
I totally agree.
Commissioner?
Chair Tush, Regent Sheehy, I think Ron answered it, but there's a lot of data within EverFi. It's so new to us that, we haven't even have it fully completed yet. And so, but as that data comes out, I think there will be a lot for us to look at as a system. Hopefully we'll see improvements in financial literacy and alcohol consumption. I think that the inverse will be the case with sexual assault. One of the major problems is that so many go unreported on campuses across the country. I think as we get people to start talking about it, the report and the incidences, the uncomfortable instances that we read about will go up. But that's an important part of sort of the overall healing process of this, and a needed part. And so I think it's very important that the board keeps in mind what it is, to your first question, what it is we are looking for. We're probably looking for an improvement with financial literacy and alcohol. We're probably looking for an improvement that will come in terms of more sexual assaults being reported in that field. But I think ultimately that's a good thing, and we will learn from that, and we'll adjust our training and our requirements as we move forward. And that is starting to become a national effort, certainly one that hit us hard early on, but one that we take very seriously. And I think we will see improvements. I think it's a very valuable tool. I was at a family gathering last week, and I now have 2 nieces and 2 nephews joining the system, and they all mentioned the fact that they got to take the course. And I think they were sincere in saying it was a good thing, but they're talking about it, and they're wondering why. And I think all those things ultimately lead to the educational aspect of this that's so important to the system.
President Engstrom.
Chair Tuss, Regent Sheehy, I did want to just mention, and maybe you're already aware of this, that we are all required through something called the Clery Act to do annual reporting of crime statistics, including sexual assault and other crimes on our campuses. And that's been in place for quite a number of years now. So we do have a pretty long record of data to draw upon and to serve as a baseline for what against now these new efforts that we have and the impact of them over the next several years. And that data, the Clery statistics, are all available in a public way. The public is able to go onto any university's website and get access to Clery statistics. And so that's been a very tight reporting requirement for many years. I wanted to echo then what Commissioner Christian just said, that given all of the effort that we have, it's probably not realistic to see an immediate downturn in the number of some of these events. And I think as he said, that probably is a good thing that we're getting on top of this and that victims are feeling more comfortable that they are able to report and that they will get some action as a result of it. So, thank you.
Regent Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Muffick, I was curious about, especially in relationship to alcohol awareness and the sexual assault and anticipating, part of the success might be increased reporting going on, which may not seem like progress, but it is progress. If there's enough awareness built out there, I was wondering what kind of interaction have we had with our law enforcement community with these type of efforts, because they might be anticipating the same type of thing, but how have we interacted with law enforcement?
Chair Tuss, Regent Robinson. I don't believe I can really answer that question. I think I might defer that one to the commissioner as far as how campus security has been working on that situation. I know that's one of the best practices we've been looking at, and one of the things going forward as a campus, and the White House is recommending that a campus connect more with local law enforcement and have those conversations. I know there's been conversations, say for example, Western doesn't have their own police force, so they work very closely with the local law enforcement, whereas Bozeman and Missoula obviously have their campus police. But I think the commissioner might be able to answer that one better than I, if I can defer to him.
Chair Tuss, Regent Robinson, the answer is it's very closely integrated. That's part of it's one of the very prominent pieces of the puzzle. I know Missoula has recently signed an MOU with the police force and how they would work together on these things. Bozeman has worked extremely closely with the police force there, not only on the assault issues, but on larger issues. We've had a couple incidences on both of those two campuses in the last year, and I think it was impressive how well campus police worked with local police, whether it's the threat from assault or a threat from someone wanting to do other bodily harm. I think we've done a good job coordinating, but that is a very prominent piece. Ultimately, we've got to create an environment where victims feel safe to report the issues. Victims feel like they will be trusted, heard, understood. Ultimately, all of those things will make the perpetrators feel much less comfortable that they can do these things and get away with it. And that is definitely a coordinated effort between the campuses and law enforcement. And, I think across the system, we're reaching out to law enforcement to see how we can work better together. We've learned some very valuable lessons in the last few years. One of them certainly has been when we don't coordinate well, we drop the ball in the middle, and that's something that we're trying to avoid. And I think the relationships are strong, maybe as strong as they've ever been, and I think we will see some good results from that.
Mm-hmm.
President Cruzado.
Yes, Regent Tuss and Regent Robinson, I also need to add to what the Commissioner already explained. It's important for our university police departments to work hand in hand with our law enforcement agencies, but also for to get the tone at the top from you, from the Commissioner, certainly from the administration, that that we are going to be very strict and diligent in the reporting. What we have done at Montana State University is that we really report absolutely everything. This is a good lesson that I have learned from athletics compliance. Sometimes when you see reports and when you see 0 incidences, that's when you need to be concerned. Because either we have a perfect population or we are being very lax in reporting. So even when we have seen that in some instances those numbers have grown, what it also means is that we are paying special attention and everything, absolutely every incident is being reported and included in our lists.
Thank you. Further comments, further questions from the board? Ron, thank you for a very good presentation. Please continue to keep this board informed about this initiative. This truly is a top priority and has been for some period of time. Continue with the aggressive rollout on all of our campuses, and let us certainly know if there's anything that you need from us to make this even more successful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Tuss, members of the board, are there any questions on either the research initiative or the SWAMI update before we move on?
Chair Tuss, I would just like to comment that and really underscore the fact that with the SWAMI update, that certainly Deputy Commissioner Seck and members of the tier colleges certainly need to receive some accolades in the implementation of the $25 million grant. Certainly putting a grant together is no easy task, but when the award happens, there's that sense of relief, and then there's, okay, now we have to implement. And just in reviewing the information and everything that's been implemented, I think they absolutely should receive tremendous accolades for boots on the ground and implementation across an expansive system. And this absolutely feeds into our initiative for workforce development and really meaningful application of where we need to be moving in assisting our students and our communities. So I'd just like to thank Deputy Commissioner Seck and everyone who participated.
Regent Krause.
Thanks. I just wanted to comment for a second on the subject we were just on before, and it has to do with what we've learned over time about predators on our campus and in our college towns. And we are working very hard with the students. It's not really related to this student education that we were just talking about, but the need for the university system as a whole to work with the local governments so that predators are prosecuted and tried and prosecuted, and that has a cost. And of course, university towns are usually willing to take that up in the communities they're in. But I just wanted to say that part of our approach to this needs to be proactive with the localities. Missoula, Bozeman, some Billings, some pretty big towns have the resources to do that. But we do have some smaller communities also that have our institutions in them, and it can't be overlooked that the resources for the county attorneys and the prosecutors and the response teams and those kinds of things might be lacking in some of those communities. And so as we formulate what it is we're going to do about this problem, I think we need to look at how we coordinate our resources, not just in the big towns, but in the smaller towns as well.
Excellent point, Regent Krause. Further conversation, questions, Commissioner?
Chair Tuss, Regent Albeck, thank you for your thoughts on the SWAMI grant. It is very important. We should also say thank you to Susan Wolf and her team, who are the lead institution on this grant, for all the efforts and that have went into that. It is a pretty monumental effort on Great Falls resources, and so we thank them for all we're doing to move this forward. It is truly a great opportunity for Montana, and we appreciate everyone's efforts. We don't generally thank deputy commissioners. We work simply on a negative reinforcement policy at the commissioner's office, so I don't want you to get started thanking those guys very often. But Chancellor, yeah. All right. Any other questions on either of those items? So, Chair Tuss, the next thing that you'll introduce, I had served for a number of years with Mark Simmons, actually, as a regent. When an item came before us, Mark was in his 7th year, and it happened to be that we hold the license on Montana PBS. And no one at the table had known that, and Mark, after 7 years, didn't know that. And we realized the Montana University system touches so many things in Montana and across the state that we know are important, and we know we're sort of attached to, but we don't really know how. And so one of the things that we hope to do in the next few meetings is bring a few of those forward. I had the opportunity to travel with the group from the Museum of the Rockies, and I realized then and there they have such an incredible presence, not only in Montana but across the globe, that it is worth noting. And so we wanted to start with that one and give you a sense of what we do within the university system to fulfill sort of the outreach and the service aspect of our mission. And so that's important, and we wanted to bring this forward. And if you've never had a chance to travel with Pat and Shelley, that in itself is quite a process, as I'm sure Regent Krause can attest to. And so we will move to the next item, Mr. Chair.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Tuss, members of the board, Commissioner Christian, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shelley McCamey, and I'm the Executive Director of the Museum of the Rockies at Montana State University. Last April, as Commissioner Christian said, we had the pleasure of traveling to Japan on museum business with Commissioner Christian and President Cruzado. Gotta get used to doing that. And in June, we went to Italy together to visit a research site near Pompeii. Afterwards, Commissioner Christian observed that the museum might be better known worldwide, possibly, than it is in Montana, and he invited us to make this presentation today, and we're delighted to be here, and thank you very much for the time on your agenda. We will be briefing you about the museum's engagement with Montana communities and our international initiatives, and we've left time at the end of our presentation for questions and comments. Everything that happens at the Museum of the Rockies is a team effort, and so I wish all of my staff could be here today. But I've asked two members to join me to make presentations. Angie Weichert, who is Director of Education and Public Programs, will talk about our Montana initiatives, and Pat Leegee, who is the Administrative Director of Paleontology and Director of Exhibits, will present our global engagement. To give you a context for their remarks, I'd like to tell you 5 quick facts about the Museum of the Rockies. First, and most importantly, we are a university museum founded as the Montana State College Historical Museum in 1957 as a way of helping our college's land-grant mission of research, teaching, and public service, as it was known then, to be fulfilled. As you can see, our first home on the campus was a Quonset hut. Don't you love those cars? And from the very beginning, students have been involved with us. It feels like it some days, yes, sir. In 1965, our name changed to the Museum of the Rockies to signify a broader perspective. And in 1972, we moved to our present location at the edge of campus. Secondly, we are a collections holding museum with more than 500,000 objects in our collections. When you think of our collections, you probably think of dinosaur bones, and we are a repository for paleontology specimens found on federal lands. But we also have collections in cultural history, ethnology, historic photography, and art. And you might wonder why I'm showing you a can of peas. Well, like many objects in our collection, they have a story behind them. For many years, the Gallatin Valley was the center of sweet pea production for the state of Montana, and there were 4 pea canneries in the town. And then in the 50s, there was a blight that wiped out the pea industry. So all we have left now is the Sweet Pea Festival in the summer and a can of peas. Objects like this and the stories they tell are one of the reasons that museums keep and collect objects, and we are obliged to care for them in perpetuity. As you know from your agenda, we're out of room for our collections, and you'll hear more about that later. Third, we are a research museum, best known for our paleontology research under the direction of our Curator of Paleontology and Regents Professor, Dr. Jack Horner. Everything you see depicted in our dinosaur hall is based on original research done at Montana State University by Dr. Horner, the paleo staff, and a cadre of past and present graduate students. If you've been to the Siebel Dinosaur Hall, you've seen this diorama, and you know that behind it is the fossil evidence on which it's based. This is a scene of a Deinonychus attacking a Tenontosaurus, and behind it you'll see the death pose of the Tenontosaurus and 11 Deinonychus teeth scattered among the bones. This discovery was made near Bridger, Montana in 1991 by an MSU doctoral student, Dave Verricchio, who is now Dr. Verricchio and a member of the faculty in Earth Sciences at Montana State University. We're also doing original research now in historic photography and in our history program. Fourth, we are an accredited museum and currently in our third cycle by the American Alliance of Museums. Accreditation signifies that we meet the best practices in the museum profession and the highest standards in community service. There are only 10% of the museums in the United States are accredited, so we're very proud of this. We're also proud to be a Smithsonian affiliate. And finally, the fifth descriptor is that the Museum of the Rockies is funded by a very unique public-private partnership that's between the university and a private 501c3 partnership that was founded in 1965. President Leon Johnson observed that the museum would never reach its full potential without dedicated community funding and urged the Bozeman community to establish Museum of the Rockies, Inc. Today, the museum manages the museum's earned income and donated support and funds our capital projects. Every year, on average, the Museum of the Rockies Board has to raise $5 for every dollar that we receive in state funding in order to meet our budget and continue our mission. One of the most significant contributions funded by the Museum of the Rockies, Inc. was the capital expansion to the facility in the late 1980s, which tripled the size of the building. The new Museum of the Rockies opened in 1989, and since then we've welcomed more than 3 million visitors. That's a lot of people in a state with less than 1 million visitors and more cows than people. So we're very proud of that. The museum looks much the same as it does, but if you look behind us at the football stadium, you can see that some years have passed. One of the key components of this new design for the museum were new halls in which to display traveling exhibits. This meant for the first time there was a museum in Montana with enough gallery space, environmental controls, and security to present nationally traveling exhibits. And you'll hear more about this later. Several years ago, the board also raised funds to expand our Children's Discovery Center, which is now themed around a visit to Yellowstone Park for kids up to 8 years of age. But we find an awful lot of adults, parents and grandparents in there enjoying it as well. The script for this was developed in partnership with Yellowstone National Park to be sure that we reinforced their interpretive objectives. Most recently, the board has provided the funding so that we could renovate our Taylor Planetarium and install state-of-the-art digital equipment and a new sound system. This new planetarium has been very well received by our visitors and opened new avenues of collaboration with our MSU researchers and students. The Museum of the Rockies furthers Montana State University's mission, our Montana State University's strategic plan, of mountains and minds, learners and leaders in the areas of learning, discovery, and engagement, and is one of the best examples of integrating those three components together. I've asked Angie Weichert to explain our role in informal education with Montana audiences.
Thank you, Shelley, and thank you to the Board of Regents for having us here this morning. As the most visited museum in the state, the Museum of the Rockies is well known for its permanent collections with paleontology, American Indians, and Montana history. MOR also encourages discovery beyond Montana with topics from around the world. You may have experienced this firsthand this summer with our live animal exhibit featuring geckos. Montana has no native gecko species, but our state sure got to know them well. It was not uncommon to find toddlers plastered with their faces against the floor of our lobby this summer, hugging our large decals of geckos. This national exhibit and others that have come before it that you can see up there have inspired Montanans to discover the world right at home here in our state. MOR's exhibits, both permanent and traveling, drive our annual attendance of about 145,000 people. Our diverse array of programming, however, keeps our patrons and our members coming back. MOR's youngest program participants are just 2 weeks old. One of my favorite stories from this age group is of an infant, several months old, who had been attending our museum sign language program with his mother. He was still young enough that he wasn't able to talk. He was in a rear-facing car seat, but anytime he got near the Museum of the Rockies, near Kagi and Wilson, he would start signing dinosaur from the back seat. As an educator, I have to teach something all the time. So today you all just learned the sign for dinosaur. This passion for learning and appreciation of museums carries into our school-age children as well through our camps and our after-school programs. In the photo here, you can see Rocky Rex handing out plush dolls to our summer campers who are in 1st through 7th grade. I'm not too sure who's the most excited person in this photo. You can see that I don't enjoy my job at all. Our adult members appreciate the access to original research of Montana State University professors through regular lectures. They also participate in book clubs and classes and help others learn by becoming a part of our volunteer corps, which is now 300 people strong. MOR ensures that all families and residents of every income level feel welcome at the museum. Through private donations and in partnership with HRDC, the 168 local families of Gallatin, Park, and Marr counties who have children in the Head Start program receive free family memberships. With the Explore Bozeman Pass, MOR offers 8 weekly family passes to Bozeman residents through our library program and opens the door to everyone through annual free days at the museum. MOR also offers partial and full ride scholarships through private funding for all of the museum's fee-based programs. MOR serves Montana students in kindergarten through 12th grade through 3 major programs, the largest of which are our free field trips. Since 2005, Museum of the Rockies has raised private funds to provide free admission for every school child on a field trip from the state of Montana. Whether they attend public, private, tribal schools, or are homeschooled, all of Montana's K-12 students, their teachers, and chaperones are granted free admission through this program. MOR also reimburses up to half of their bus costs. As a result of this funding, MOR is able to reach schools from around the state who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford a trip to Bozeman or to the Museum of the Rockies. Even some of our local Gallatin Valley schools would not be able to join us at the museum if it weren't for that transportation reimbursement. This map shows just how far our field trip program reaches. Unfortunately, it's a little bit light for you right now, but if you look, that yellow is just one small classroom visiting us from any given school. That darker red is a larger population. And you can see from this map that our reach has a concentration right in Gallatin Valley, but it extends out even to the northeast corner of the state up there. There are yellow dots. In 2013, with the opening of the newly renovated Taylor Planetarium, the Museum of the Rockies reached 10,000 school children. It's not uncommon in the spring, particularly May, to have our parking lot full with 4 to 5 buses, have backpacks not blocking, but causing it a little bit of a traffic hazard down in our lower lobby, and be shoulder to shoulder with school children. Working with the Office of Public Instruction, MOR's Education Department customizes school group field trips to meet teachers' needs, state standards, STEM learning, and Indian education for all. These field trips get Montana school children excited about science and expose them to Montana State University at an early age. For those students that cannot travel to Bozeman to discover the night sky in our Taylor Planetarium, the Museum of the Rockies portable planetarium has served as the next best option for decades. If you look up there, we've added another layer to the map. There are some blue dots that have popped up. Those are the locations that have received our portable planetarium throughout 2013. You can see that those start reaching far beyond Bozeman into our more rural communities. Known by its brand name, the Star Lab has been set up thousands of times in these school gymnasiums across the state. It's a giant inflatable dome that has a projection system inside with different themes, different canisters you can put on top of the projector to show Montana's night sky. We're going to add one more layer to this map. That one shows up a little bit better. Those are small trunks. Those indicate our outreach materials that are sent around the state, again, to schools that may not be able to reach the museum. This lending library of teacher resources ensures that our content, our knowledge of dinosaurs, our teaching materials can get to all of Montana's school children. Museum of the Rockies has grants pending to ensure that MOR is active in all 56 counties and that our programs are able to adapt to meet teachers' needs, Common Core, and state standards. Museum of the Rockies is committed to providing educational programming for school children that supports the Indian Education for All Act, also known as IEFA. We connect Montana classrooms directly to American Indian artifacts from our collections. In addition to on-site programming, MOR reaches classrooms through video conferencing, providing live feed from the museum's collections directly to classrooms. MOR also has 2 popular traveling trunks with traditional American Indian games that make their way around the state all year long and are always checked out. IEFA at MOR has provided professional development opportunities for educators and involved Native American students and faculty members from Montana State University in outreach activities. MOR connects docents, our volunteer tour guides, directly to our tribal members for content trainings and to the Office of Public Instruction for the latest resources and standards in Indian education, ensuring that all of our school children are always receiving the highest quality experience. In addition to our field trips for K-12 school children, MOR also offers free admission for all Montana University System students on class assignments. This isn't just our Montana State students, this extends out to all campuses. Just Monday, as I was walking through the dinosaur halls, I had to carefully navigate through a series of giant wooden boards where our art students were using the dinosaur fossils for practice in doing pencil drawings. So we use a variety of methods to showcase our resources. MR reaches about 1 out of every 5 MSU students through different avenues, including employment. At any given time, about 1/3 of the museum's workforce is comprised of MSU students. We provide opportunities for student employees, whether work study or graduate students, to advance their careers at the same time that they work their way through school. Museum of the Rockies also serves our university students through community outreach and pre-service teaching experience for undergraduates. That is actually an arts and architecture student up there who's in AIAS that was teaching an after-school program. That's an example of our non-teaching majors that come in and teach programs for us. Other departments that come in and partner with us include chemistry, physics, music, anthropology, engineering, and robotics, just to name a few of them. Formally, MOR serves as a classroom for pre-service teachers in art education and agricultural education. We also connect our MSU students from the Space Public Outreach team with classrooms from across the state. Fulfilling MSU's land grant mission, MOR shares its collections, labs, and staff in partnership with MSU to create original research. As you're aware, and as was already mentioned, MOR's internationally recognized paleontology program, led by Regents Professor Dr. Jack Horner, generates some of the most significant discoveries in the world with MSU doctoral candidates. MOR also produces original research with the Department of Education. Twice in the past 2 years, this partnership has been published, highlighting the benefits of collaboration between universities and museums. MOR also serves as a partner in disseminating original research from MSU to the public. Last year, for the first time, MSU researchers were able to see images of solar flare in full resolution and on the big screen of our Taylor Planetarium. For university students seeking real-world experience, Museum of the Rockies is a perfect place for an internship. MOR serves many museum study minors from the history department each year. MSU students also gain experience in teaching, developing curriculum, conducting market research, and learning graphic design. This image is of solar observing right in front of Old Faithful during our Stars Over Yellowstone program in the summer. Museum of the Rockies works with communities throughout the state through additional outreach and tourism programs beyond our schools. In 2013, the Carter County Museum reached out to Museum of the Rockies to enter in a sister museum agreement. This relationship has been proven beneficial to both sides. And speaking of dinosaurs, Museum of the Rockies is a proud partner in the Dinosaur Trail. This tourism-driven program is aimed at increasing attendance at all of Montana's paleontological museums and drives tourism in Montana's rural communities. MOR is also a proud member and active participant in the Museums Association of Montana. We're happy to share our knowledge and expertise and learn from our colleagues across the state. In the past 2 years, Museum of the Rockies has also served as a partner for the Montana Library Association. MOR provides free educational materials, lessons plans, and prizes for 2,200 children participating in summer reading programs at Montana libraries. This is an image from this summer's activity, which was all about geysers. And as you can see, we went through about 100 bottles of Diet Coke and several rolls of Mentos, teaching about Yellowstone science. You can see MOR has a great presence throughout the state of Montana. At this time, we're going to talk about the worldwide impact that the museum has, and I'd welcome Pat Leachy.
Thank you, Angie. Sharing Montana with the world. I'm going to actually first begin with some projects that we've done across the country, Washington. In 2012, President Cruzado invited the MOR to represent MSU at the Folklife Festival in Washington, D.C. That takes place annually on the Mall in Washington. Next, please. The campus and community theme of the Folklife Festival was celebrated the 150th anniversary of the Morrill Act, also known as the Land Grant Act. And the funny thing was that the actual act could not be displayed at the Folklife Festival because the last time it was displayed was at the Museum of the Rockies in 2010 before it was archived for conservation purposes. And that was to honor Dr. Cruzado. Next, please. So this was a really huge undertaking for the MOR. It was a 2-week project, and in Washington we had, it was fully staffed. A lot of children learned how to prepare fossils. It was probably considered the most engaging exhibit at the Folklife Festival. And more than 800,000 people actually attended the Folklife Festival. There would have been a lot more, but there was a big storm. There's usually about 1.2 million. A real funny side story on this is that everything was destroyed during this severe storm. And I went into the MSU tent to see what was left, and there was only one little sticky note that said, "Go Cats." Next. So again in Washington, D.C., just this past April, you may have read about it in the newspapers, but the Wankle T-Rex, one of the most famous T-Rexes ever discovered, was sent to the National Museum of Natural History. It was a big event, and this is going to be the centerpiece of their new dinosaur hall in 2019. Now, they're expecting about 8 million people are actually going to see this dinosaur, one of Montana's own, when it actually appears there in 2019. It's supposed to return in 50 years, and another little funny story was that when it was leaving the museum, I saw this little boy crying in the lobby, and I asked him what was wrong, and he was just so sad that, we're losing our dinosaur, and this and that. And I said, "How old are you?" And he said, "I'm 5. I said, "You'll see it again when you're 55. Just to actually add to that, the Museum of the Rockies actually has plans right now to display its own real T-Rex. It'll probably be the 4th in the world. I think it's the 4th in the world. We hope to have that that project completed in early 2015. So let's go global. I will mention this first. Dr. Horner just came back from Mongolia. He's been working there for many years with some of our graduate students, and has been doing a lot of research there with them. And so he's just returned. I haven't had a chance to talk to him about what he found this time, but I heard he found a lot of dinosaurs, of course. But I'm going to talk a bit about the areas that we most recently have been working in, Singapore, Taiwan, and Japan. 2011, the Museum of the Rockies launched its Traveling Exhibitions program. This is a program to actually get our original research exhibited out across the nation, across the world. It's a great way to engage with other cultures. And of course, any revenues that are generated from that actually support our research efforts at the Museum of the Rockies. Now, it actually was launched at a museum called the Fukui Prefectural Dinosaur Museum, and it actually drew 180,000 visitors for the first venue. Since then, it's also traveled to Osaka, Kumamoto, and Yokohama, Japan, and Taipei in Singapore. I'm saying over 800,000 people in this slide. I just returned from Japan 2 days ago, and I got the numbers for Yokohama. In 5 weeks, 193,000 people saw our exhibit in Yokohama. That's close to 39,000 people a week. And now we're going to actually retool it, and it's scheduled to begin traveling in the USA in 2015. Our next project is going to be the Yellowstone exhibit. It's called Yellowstone National Park, a concept that captivated the world. It actually premiered at the Museum of the Rockies last fall. We're retooling that for a worldwide tour, and we will probably also send that across the country. Now, one of the things that we're going to experiment with this exhibit is that with all these numbers of people that are actually coming to see our exhibits, we thought it would be a useful tool to actually start promoting awareness of Montana and getting people to think about coming to Montana. So this last section that you see up here of the exhibit is actually going to be a place where people will get a great photo op with a bison, and they can actually get information about how they can travel to Yellowstone National Park through Bozeman, Montana. Curator of History Michael Fox and I will be going to Sydney, Australia to attend the World Parks Congress conference in early November, and we'll be talking to more than 4,000 delegates there about this tour. So, what's developed from all of these traveling exhibitions? Well, we have two sister museum relationships in Japan now. And the first one was at the Fukui Prefectural Dinosaur Museum, where we launched the exhibit. The one I'm going to pay most attention to is the one on the left down in the island of Kyushu, the Mifune Dinosaur Museum. Mifune is actually within our sister state of Kumamoto. Dr. Naoki Ikegami came to see me about 4 years ago, and he asked if we would consider collaborating on a project. He wanted to get some dinosaurs to prepare at his museum. It's a very popular item at museums, not only here in the States, but certainly in Japan. And in return for them preparing our dinosaurs, we actually go over there and we train their staff. In fact, I just came back from one of those trainings a couple days ago. And the first thing we sent over, Jack Horner had a bunch of sauropod material, and he said, boy, let's get that prepared. He had a neck, and what came out of it actually was a skull. And we had no idea that the skull was in that field jacket. And sauropod skulls are extremely rare, especially in Montana. And so with their help, the Mifune Dinosaur Museum, they were able to uncover this, and it is currently being studied by one of our graduate students at MSU. Now, the preparation project, as they call it, has gotten very popular. And this is a very common occurrence where anytime that we're over in Japan, we do a lot of media. We promote their efforts and our collaboration. And the best part of it all is that there isn't a single penny, not a dime that's spent out of state or federal money. It is all privately funded, mostly from the Mifune Town community in Japan. But even better yet, what really came out of this was there was so much attention brought to it that during the Abe recovery program, the town of Mifune decided that they were going to try to get funding for a new museum. They talked to the prefectural government. It was approved. And in in April 26th of this year, the new Mifune Dinosaur Museum opened to the public. And you can see that there's a lot of dinosaurs in this museum, and many of them, believe it or not, are cast from Montana and are from the Museum of the Rockies. But the best part is when you first go into the museum, this is the first case you see. It's called the Montana case. This is the way they have shown their gratitude for our help and support. And what you're looking at, of course, is the Montana flag, but what you're seeing on the right there is the sister museum agreement between the Museum of the Rockies and the Mifune Dinosaur Museum. There's a bronze tooth that I that actually gave them about 4 years ago in friendship. And then what you see on the left is actually a cast of that sauropod neck and skull replica that they prepared. We presented that to them during the ceremonies when they opened the new museum. Accompanying Executive Director McCamey and I was Commissioner Christian, President Cruzado, and here's another number I had wrong before I left a month ago. I just, about a few hours ago, received word from Dr. Ikegami that 138,000 people have now visited the Mifune Dinosaur Museum in 4.5 months. Remember, our visitation is 145,000 a year. Prior to this, their average was 37,000 a year. Now, here's another kind of fun event that we went to. It's called the Kumamoto Montana Club. And seated here is President Cruzado, Commissioner Christian. You can see me in the back there. Next to me on the left is actually the chairman of, president of the Kumamoto Montana Club, Mr. Ishihara. And next to Shelley is Governor Kabashima. And he's been very, very supportive of this project. In fact, so much so that the prefectural government now would like the Museum of the Rockies to consider an MOU to advise them on their 40+ museums. So we're looking into that right now. One person I want to point out is the lady on the right. Her name is Mako Sakaguchi. She's one of our Montana trade reps, and she has been really instrumental in helping us get around Japan and to learn all the ropes and to meet a lot of people. So, to conclude, I want to talk about how sometimes you have to go global to actually bring something back to Montana. And so there are researchers in Italy that have been working on an archaeological site for the past 30 years near Pompeii. The Villa of Oplantis is considered where the wealthy lived and played in luxury. It is near Pompeii. It was actually completely leveled in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD along with Pompeii. And we have a very special person at the Montana State University. Her name is Dr. Regina G. She is the Associate Professor of Art History, and she is actually one of the people that's studying the frescoes from this villa. She's working with colleagues from University of Texas, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and Smith College. So the exhibit, what's going to come out of this is an exhibit in 2016. The Italian government is only allowing these artifacts to leave the country for a little less than 2 years, and there will only be 4 venues. And the Museum of the Rockies is going to be the only venue in the western United States. The other 3 museums are going to be at the University of Michigan, University of Texas, and Smith College. It'll open in June of 2016 at the MOR and close in 2017 in January. There's new curriculum being developed for MSU students and also K-12 schools. And we expect a very significant impact on Bozeman. And with that, I will turn it back over to Ms. McKamey.
Thank you, Pat. In conclusion, let's revisit Montana State University's mission, using Oplantis as a case in point. The opportunity to bring an original exhibit of this significance to Montana is possible because the Museum of the Rockies has the physical plant and the best practices and the reputation to have it. The Oplantis exhibit and the corresponding activities are going to be a great example of integration throughout the MSU campus. We'll be supporting the research goal by featuring the work of Dr. G and giving students yet another inspirational example of real-world research. We're going to be supporting the learning objective, as Pat said, by developing special curriculum for university students. In fact, next summer, Dr. G and her colleagues will be hosting a symposium at the Research Institute that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation. And professors from a variety of disciplines at MSU will be working on curriculum for their classes. It's too early to tell exactly what's going to be happening. We're starting to look at proposals now. But in addition to art and art history, there'll be some ag classes, earth science classes and volcanism, and also a possible ag class in Follow the Grape from the flanks of Vesuvius to wine production. For the first time, though, as this group of professors sits together, there'll be a museum informal educator sitting with them, and Angie Weichert will be joining them, and we'll be developing curriculum for K through 12 audiences concurrently with what is being developed with the university. So that's a new step for integration. And we'll also be then using university curriculum as the basis for the public programs and lectures that we'll be providing for the public. We're going to be engaging thousands of people, I hope, over the 6 months that the exhibit is in the museum, and that will be both Montanans and out-of-state visitors. And we certainly hope that at least some of those visitors have kids with them that are of potential college age, and that we can serve as the front door to Montana State University campus. And the publicity for all this is going to benefit everybody. I think we all recognize the educational, cultural, and social benefits of the museum, but there's one more significant contribution, and that is to our economy. Earlier this spring, the Northern Rocky Mountain Development District did an economic impact study for us and found that the museum contributes $48 million annually to the economy in Gallatin County and affects 733 jobs. We are very proud to be part of our community in that way. As a nonprofit, you're frequently out asking for money, and it's really great to be in a position where you could be helping the businesses in your community as well. Chairman Tuss, we could go on forever. We're passionate about what we say, but I think we're going to stop there and welcome questions and comments.
Thank you very much. What a great presentation. Regent Krause, you probably have all kinds of questions about this place, right?
I don't know.
One of my takeaways based on one of your pictures is that the next time my teenager talks about that Diet Coke and Mentos thing they do, it looks like it's science or research or something associated with the museum. Are there other comments or questions from the board? Yeah, Regent Robinson.
Thank you, Chairman Tuss. I have a couple comments first and then a couple questions, if I could. I think you've done a great presentation to explain exactly what the Museum of the Rockies not only does for Montana, but does for the world. And I wanted to start first with, I think, I need to mention that within our family, we have 3 children, and it's a requirement when we come to Bozeman to come to the Museum of the Rockies, not because of the adults, we enjoy it too, but because of our kids. And it's always something new. I did want to mention that in particular, it was good to see how the planetarium is put together and how it's executed, how it's managed, because there was a young gentleman, I think Logan was his name, maybe a student that was volunteering there. And I think, again, it fulfills that purpose of inspiring and educating, because our interaction with him was really amazing. And our family is unfortunately a very theme park driven family. And we really appreciated the engagement of the student that led the whole effort, of Logan, I believe it was, because it really brought science to life. And I think that's really important, is that all of this, shouldn't it be educating our children in order to want to go into those type of fields, and it certainly does within our family. Secondly, I also want to mention that in contacting your office, that there was a small public school in Ashland, Montana that was interested in participating, and they couldn't afford it. But when we contacted your office, we were able to put them in touch with the right people, and you all helped them to bring their students, which is there at Ashland Public. It's about 99% American Indian students, and so they couldn't typically have that type of experience. So I think, again, you're reaching out into all corners of Montana and providing that access that's so important to us for education. So I really appreciate that as well. Another item that I thought that was important was you're talking about, well, I guess this is a question I have now, is you're talking about participation with American Indian students. Do you have any that participate by working there, or that you've had as docents, or anything that work directly with the Museum of the Rockies? And how have you approached that?
At the moment, actually, one of the Native American graduate student, Lisa Lonefight, is serving on our Board of Trustees. And we've also done some work with Native American studies, but there certainly is an opportunity to do more. Lisa has some ideas that she would like to develop about exploring our native gardens at the Living History Farm, and so we're going to be pursuing that. But there certainly is opportunity to do more. Angie, do you have any specific examples?
We work directly with students, so one of the ways that we reach out to the MSU Native American Studies Department is we bring them over for family events. So we've had 3 Scout Days in the month of March where we bring Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts together. And the Native American students have taught various different languages to those groups as well as their traditional games. As far as staff, we don't have them on board that way, but we do bring them over as we can for programming.
That's excellent. You might want to contact also their American Indian Science and Engineering community that they have. It's at, I think, almost all of the campuses. I know I attended Montana Tech had an event where there was a conference that they had, a regional conference, and so I know that there's students that may be interested in those type of fields as well and participating. The last question I have is, you had mentioned your funding as far as your goals to, I guess, provide as much of a match, 5-to-1 to state dollars that are provided to help with the museum. And I was wondering, over the past years, how have you been in reaching that goal as far as being able to provide additional funding to supplement the state dollars?
We've done very well. On years when we've done capital projects like the planetarium or the children's room, the ratio's been more like 10-to-1. But the board manages our budget, and if we don't think we can raise the money or earn the money that we need to do the budget, we just don't set the budget that high. So the ratio over the last 13 years has been, I think, 5-to-1.
Great, thank you. The last comment I have is that, I think it's great that we're also, from a university perspective, a university system perspective, reaching out and sharing our message globally as well, and I think you're doing an excellent job doing that. I do want to mention that this summer, my family and I did travel to Japan. Unfortunately, we weren't invited to be a part of your tour, but that's okay. It shows how well you're, managing your funds. You're not spending it inappropriately. But I think there's a great audience, as you've explained, in Japan alone, to be able to reach out and not just help to educate them, but educate them about what we have here in Montana. So thank you for your presentation.
Mr. Chair, Regent Robinson, thank you very much for your comments. I appreciated exactly what you said about inspiring kids. You never know if it's going to be dinosaurs or the planetarium or, an Indian artifact or a crop growing that's going to trigger a kid to want to pursue education or a field. And what you said was exactly right, and why we do what we do. And the next time we go to Japan, we'll be sure and let you know.
It's in the minutes.
Don't let me know that they're going. You all get to go. They'll let you know.
It'll be March.
Thank you, Regent Robinson. Is it possible to go back a couple slides, perhaps, to that economic impact slide?
Certainly.
I want to make sure, $48 million. I really appreciate you guys tracking this. I think that sometimes when we talk about art, when we talk about culture, when we talk about museums, this gets lost in the shuffle. And sometimes we think of these things as niceties, when it really has this type of a hard dollar impact on Montana's economy. So this popped out to me, and one of my colleagues at the Northern Rocky Mountain EDD was the one that did this study for you. And I think this is very significant, so I would encourage you to continue to track the impact, the financial impact that your efforts are having on the economy of the state of Montana. It's a big deal, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Regent Sheehy.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about the Pompeii exhibit that I think are best directed to Ms. Weichert. You talked about the curriculum that you're developing in conjunction with the university. Will that curriculum be available to other K-12 schools outside of Bozeman?
Yeah, so it's all still in the planning process, but the current thought with our planning group is to develop a statewide curriculum. So using teachers that are in the school system, in our public school system, to have them help us write that curriculum and spread it out throughout the state. So from that map that you saw, taking and making sure we hit all 56 of those counties, and the outreach trunks to the northeast corners, to the northwest corner, wherever that needs to go.
You probably already thought of this, but those 7 months of the exhibit fall at a precarious time for high school students. 3 of those months are summer and they're not in session, and 2 of them are bad travel months for most Montana school kids. So I'd really encourage you to, even before you have the curriculum developed, let the K-12 schools around our state know about it in time to plan to get there, because this is so exciting. And I think it'll be such a major thing for all of the schools. And I would also encourage you in developing that curriculum to including, well, not a puff piece, but something to let those students know that this is an opportunity for them in our university system. This is a university system project. This is university research. They can move on in their in a university in Montana and get this kind of science and history. It's just really, really exciting to hear as a board member that this is happening and that it's so well integrated, and to take that a step farther and encourage those kids to pursue education, not just higher education, but education in Montana to attain this kind of education. It's really wonderful. So thank you for letting us know about it. And if there's anything we can do to help with getting the word out to the K-12, I think that's really, really important early, before the curriculum's developed, so that they can incorporate the trips and find the funding.
Yeah, thank you. That's certainly part of our plan, and being able to reach more than just the 10,000 school children we do now in the upcoming years is to do a better job of alerting our schools as to what's coming up, how to get to the museum, the Opening Doors for Montana School Children Fund that's in place, and bringing that Aplantis project to life will certainly be part of that as well.
Mr. Chair, Regent Sheehy, if I could just do a shameless plug here. If you could help us get the word out to K through 12 educators and university professors that students on a field trip, students in a class, get into the museum for free. Their teachers get in, their chaperones get in, and will help with bus costs. We'd love to have more than 10,000 kids. Our docents may not, but we would love it. And so if you can help us spread that word, we'd really appreciate it.
No such thing as a shameless plug at the Regent table. We do it all the time. Further comments or questions from board members? Regent Krause.
Yeah, I suppose there should be some full disclosure here, and that is that I am the finance director at the Museum of the Rockies. And of course, the Museum of the Rockies is also one of our, one of Bozeman's community's proudest accomplishments, and it isn't, though, just the community. The whole state supports the Museum of the Rockies. As far as shameless plugs go, I would like to point out that the director and I are wearing these ties. They are based on a slide okay, so this is a Tyrannosaurus, inside a Tyrannosaurus bone. And it's a slide used to study fossil bone microstructure, curated by Jack Horner, the Museum of the Rockies Paleontology Department, and the Laboratory for Cellular and Molecular Paleontology. And these are available at the museum store. That would be the finance director part of the program. For those of you thinking, boy, we got to get a museum, right? I wanted to just, I teach the finance portion of and some of the ethics of museums in the museum studies, just one day of that, a couple of hours. And one of the things I point out to students there financially is sort of the record of museums is that they charge about $6 for admissions. Ours is much higher. But it costs $23.35 to serve every visitor. So in case you're wanting to go out, anyone wanting to go out and get a museum, that's a pretty big difference to make up everywhere you go. It's an expensive proposition, and it really is the people of the state of Montana who support this museum, and both visitors and through the university that really make it happen. And it couldn't be done without that combination because of those kinds of economics. And museums fail all over the country pretty readily. It is a risky business. To build an institution around physical objects, right? And we just happen to have some really interesting physical objects that people want to pay to see and people want to pay to research. And the work that Pat and Shelley and Jack have done to promote this worldwide is going to make a difference, not just to the university system through Oplantis or relationships in Japan, but it's going to make a difference. We're going to inspire people to come here. As Mr. Legge said, we go out there and we're going to bring them back. And I think everyone in this state recognizes the impact of increased tourism could mean, not just to come to the Museum of the Rockies, but to tour the state, to come in, to make Montana one of those entry points for particularly the Far East and what that would mean. And it was only a couple of years ago we went into Senator Baucus's economic summit up there in Butte and heard from Delta and heard from the airlines just what could happen if with that kind of gateway. And it can happen. And this is how we expose the world to Montana, one of the ways. So, good job, and I am very privileged to be part of that organization.
Thank you, Regent Krause. Further comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Tuss, and thank you, Commissioner, for the invitation.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. President Cruzado.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the board, thanks for the opportunity for us to showcase this jewel that we have for the state of Montana. And thank you, Commissioner, for allowing us this opportunity as well. Several things I wanted to add. Regent Sheehy, thank you for your recommendation. Actually, one of the blessings that we have had with the Oplantis exhibit is the benefit of having plenty of time to plan. We started these conversations 2 years ago, and it's a tribute to the incredible vision that our faculty members have. This is a very young faculty member who had a dream, and she approached me and she said, "What do you think?" And imagine our surprise when we were chosen as one of only 4 universities that will be able to bring this exhibit to Montana. Now, what we want to make sure is that we maximize that opportunity to its fullest capacity. As we speak, we have faculty members at Montana State University working on new courses. So there will be new courses on geology, the geology of the time, right? Courses in education, courses in engineering, courses in every college is excited and invited to participate, and of course, the spillover effect that has to happen with our partners in K-12. When Pat mentioned the Folklife Festival that took place in Washington, D.C., and that we participated, that was as a result of the sesquicentennial of the Land Grant Act, and only 22 of 104 land-grant universities were invited to participate in the Folklife Festival. And I was absolutely delighted that they accepted our proposal, and I think it was in large measure because what we proposed was to bring the Museum of the Rockies. And thirdly, a mention was made about the fact that the Land Grant Act, in its original format, traveled to Montana in 2010. That is a monumental accomplishment, that the National Archives lent its permission to bring that document to Montana. It's of incredible proportions. The security behind that document was absolutely incredible. We had to seek private funds to actually pay for 2 airline tickets. One from the curator for the National Archives, the second airline ticket for the Memorial Act. So it was just because the Museum of the Rockies has the reputation and the recognition that we were able to do that. Imagine the emotion when people from every corner of this wonderful state, many of them associated with extension programs or with our ag centers, came to the Museum of the Rockies, got to see that document, and had an opportunity to see the original signature of President Abraham Lincoln that allowed this wonderful dream that we now call land-grant universities be a reality. So thank you so much to the Museum of the Rockies and for your support as well.
Thank you, President Cruzado. We are now at that point where we have a break, and believe it or not, we're about 45 minutes ahead of schedule. I don't know how that happened. This never happens. But before we start jumping for joy, I know that we've got a fairly robust budget agenda, and so my guess is that we'll be eating up some of this time, perhaps this afternoon. So at this point, let's take a 15-minute break, and we'll be back then. Thank you. It's my understanding that we did miss a couple of introductions this morning. We apologize for that. And I think we'll start, it's my understanding, Dr. Klippenstein, do we have a introduction from your campus?
Thank you, Chair Tuss, members of the board. It's my honor to introduce today from Miles Community College. Our board of our trustees is here. Jeff Okerman, please stand. Jeff Okerman's here, and yeah, thank you. Since he's one of my 7 bosses, I have to say nice things. Which is he's a good golfer, he's a good rancher, and he's a great trustee. But if you have any questions for him, he'd be happy to chat with you at any time. I just want to make sure you knew that Jeff was here today. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and welcome. Dr. Wolf, Great Falls College.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce our new Executive Director for Communications and Marketing, Rob Harper. Rob, would you please stand? Rob comes to us first from Flathead Valley Community College, so I want to give kudos to Jane. And he earned his bachelor's degree in political science from Hamden Sydney College in Virginia, also a public services certificate from there. And President Engstrom, he earned his Master of Arts in Communications from University of Montana. So I knew you'd be pleased with that. Rob comes to us from the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where he was a public relations person there. And he worked with the Institute of Ed Research and Service, also at one time at U of M, and has also experience in technical writing. So we brought a Montanan home, and we're very proud of that.
Welcome home. President Engstrom, I think you have an introduction.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. It's not exactly an introduction, it is a thank you. I was remiss earlier in not recognizing that this will be the last Regents meeting for someone that we have all come to know over these past years and have worked with closely. Barry Good has been the dean of our Missoula College, formerly the College of Technology, for a little over 9 years. Barry has decided to retire at this point, effectively the end of October, and so I didn't quite put the pieces together that he won't be at the November Regents meeting. And so I think those of you who know Barry recognize that he is a bundle of energy and a staunch advocate of 2-year education. It's been such a pleasure to work with him. I'd like Barry to stand up and ask you to join me in thanking him for his years of service at the University of Montana. Barry?
Thank you for your service. I believe that completes the additional introductions from this morning that we missed. I'd like to now turn the mic over to Dr. Shannon O'Brien, if that's okay. Dr. O'Brien is joining us from the governor's office. Welcome. We're glad you're here at the table with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you all hear me now? Thanks, Mr. Chair, and to the Regents, and the Governor sends, as always, his gratitude for your service. This is hard work in a time of significant educational change, and you all are making some fascinating decisions with lots of information and steering the direction of the Montana University system, and that is noteworthy and much appreciated. And congratulations and welcome to Chancellor Nook, Chancellor Kegel, Chancellor Evans, and all of the leaders who were introduced today and who have agreed to step up to the plate during this time of change, as you are willing to take risks and challenge yourselves and work with others to make those changes. Today, I'd just like to give you an update on the Main Street Montana project, and which drives much of what we do in the governor's office when we work for better jobs, better education, more effective government. Particularly, I'll be talking about Pillars 1 and Pillars 5. But first, I'd just like to share with you, I have passed along 2 items for your review. The first one, Governor Bullock's Opportunity and Innovation in Education document that gives a brief highlight of some of the initiatives that are taking place in the governor's administration with the governor and the lieutenant governor and staff and cabinet. If you turn onto the other page, the Main Street Montana project, I'll go into further detail later. I also just wanted to point out that Governor Bullock has been elected as the chair of the Education Commission of the states, and the lieutenant governor has been appointed as co-chair of the National Lieutenant Governors Association Education Committee. So the opportunity for both the governor and the lieutenant governor to learn at the national level and be at the table, part of the conversation, is very exciting for Montana and Montana's children. I'll talk about Early Edge in a little bit, but I do want you to be aware of the Smart Schools Initiative. The lieutenant governor is working, this is primarily K-12. There may be some opportunities for facilities in post-secondary education as well. These are incentives for energy efficiency and health in our public school system. The First Lady is also prioritizing no kid hungry and food insecurity as one of her initiatives. Breakfast After the Bell are mini grants that are going out for elementary children to have food, breakfast, just as it says, after the bell, to minimize the stigma for those schools who are in the highest low-income free and reduced lunch populations. Dual enrollment I'll talk briefly more about, but you'll be hearing more about. The governor and the lieutenant governor are delighted with the commissioner and his cabinet on the phenomenal work that has been done there, and very exciting. There's also a mobile app challenge that is going on right now. The governor asked cabinet to find out from each employee what they think might be an appropriate app concept for constituents to download for more effective government, so that they can have convenience within their work, within the constituents' use of government services. And there was a challenge that took place and a competition that took place there. Now the next step is for high school students to build teams to actually design these apps. We had a group at Helena High School last year who won the Verizon App Challenge, and one of 2 school groups across the country, and they earned $10,000 and support from university officials. There's also the university system is working with private donors to offer scholarships within the Montana University system for winners, the high school winners of the mobile app challenge. We've just completed a back-to-school tour focusing on innovation and opportunities within the public school system. We looked at, the governor saw iPads with kindergartners and first graders in Billings, really exciting STEM initiative practices throughout the state, particularly in Missoula, where the SHAPE P20 initiative with the Phyllis J. Washington College of Education and Human Sciences, along with Missoula County Public Schools, are working on a number of different ways to serve the children and help teachers serve those students better, and one in particular is professional development in the STEM areas. We looked at some alternative education going on Paris Gibson High School, or Paris Gibson Attendance Center, and Willard in Missoula, really looking at innovative ways outside of the box as far as we're not just talking about devices, we're not talking about iPads and iPhones and servers specifically, but also different innovative practices. Professional development and learning in Bozeman, pre-service teachers in a fabulous partnership with the College of Education at MSU, as well as Highlight Elementary School, part of the Bozeman schools. They actually have instruction that takes place in the elementary school, and one of the benefits certainly is how the pre-service college students are learning on-site and finding more and more ways to learn, but also the crossover in the ways that the teachers are learning from those pre-service students as well is a very exciting way of engaging teachers, and that's implemented through the university or Montana State University. There's also a grant program with MEA-MFT that is supporting coaching for teachers as well. MSU Billings was a part of this when we visited Billings West High School, and kudos to Chancellor Nook and his team of really prioritizing and finding ways to troubleshoot and look at the exciting dual enrollment opportunities for students. Amy Williams, who's your new Montana University System dual enrollment coordinator, has done a fabulous job there. MSU Northern has amazing relationships with private industry, as President Cruzado mentioned before, and Flathead Valley Community College is doing great work with adapting to the needs of the workforce. I'd like to talk just a minute, again, you've heard me say it before, the Main Street Montana project continues to go underway. Thank you again to Regent Johnstone for co-chairing that project as it progresses. Pillar 1, train and educate tomorrow's workforce today, is the #1 pillar of those emerging themes that came from the voice of the constituents of our Montanans. Understanding the needs of the workforce from the CEO level all the way to the job description level, and that is just hand in hand with the SWAMI grant that you heard about earlier, thanks to the Commissioner's Office. You've also, and this Train and Educate Tomorrow's Workforce Today focuses on preschool and mentions preschool through adulthood, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. Complete College of Montana in the Governor's State of the State Address. He mentioned increasing the number of Montanans with some type of post-secondary certification or degree from 40% to 60%. We have been a leader nationally in raising that number, and the governor appreciates the work of the Montana University system there. Large focus on time to degree. You've heard this before, and dual enrollment is that piece that is, just very critical, and the incentives that the Montana University system has put forth for teachers to earn credits in order to become eligible to teach those courses is so exciting. And around the state, as the governor travels and the lieutenant governor travels and we travel through the state, we are hearing from school administrators and teachers as they hear about it, which is, I know, the work that Amy Williams is doing now and all of you are doing now, that is a true incentive, and that is serving the needs of our rural communities and the children in those smaller schools tremendously, in addition to what's available on the Montana Digital Academy, as well as in conjunction with institutions within the university system. Prior learning assessments is moving forward greatly, and that's a very exciting opportunity to help our students graduate on time, if not early. College application week is very exciting. Thank you to the commissioner and his office on implementing that. And Ed Ready, which you'll hear more about, is just such an exciting thing. Pillar 5, nurture emerging industries and encourage innovation. You've heard a little bit from the commissioner's report about research, and the concept that I think many people don't fully understand is the direct link between research and economic development, and that was well illustrated on that research tour in July. To shift gears to Early Edge Montana, you may have read in today's paper, we were able to share with the legislature yesterday more details on the governor's proposal to help all Montana 4-year-olds be ready for school. And research overwhelmingly, I've shared with this group before, shows that if children receive high quality care and education before they hit their formal kindergarten through 12th grade year, they are significantly more likely to be contributing to society. We're talking about a return on investment of anywhere from $1 to $7 on up to 16 or 18, depending on which factors are taken into consideration. The plan that we laid out of the proposal to go before the legislature is described in your handout that has the Early Edge picture on the top there, and the details there. The governor plans to include funding in his proposed fiscal year 16-17 budget for early childhood education block grants that would be implemented through the Office of Public Instruction to districts, school districts that wish to participate. So this would be voluntary on the school district's part. They must use this funding to provide voluntary, on the children's part, high-quality preschool for 4-year-olds. School districts may provide this on their own, designing their own programs, or they may partner with qualified Head Starts, local child care centers, child care providers, or preschools to provide services within or outside of district facilities. This is a high concern of the governor's. We want to ensure that there are high-quality programs that, because there are high-quality programs that already exist, we are encouraging school districts to partner with those preschools in their communities. Grants will be distributed for each block up to 10 participating children. The proposed ratio is for every 10 children, $30,000 would be available for school districts. Funding is intended for half-day attendance. And the definition of high quality, this is a very important issue, and not only for the safety of children, but also for responsible spending of taxpayer dollars. And Superintendent Juneau and Governor Bullock requested to the Board of Public Education to consider Chapter 63, a new chapter in administrative rules that covers early childhood, and the board voted last week to move forward in the process. There will be a public hearing which is scheduled for November 3rd to hear from public about perspectives on that chapter. Those what was included in that proposal, in that draft, which was written by a large group of stakeholders, including professors within the university system, family members, and preschool directors, and Head Start, and K-12 representation. They are based on research, the National Institute for Early Education Research, NIER standards, N-I-E-E-R standards, which are steer the National Association for the Education of Young Children. In that document that you have before you, I have listed those folks as well. This is a very exciting opportunity, significant change. Your colleges of education, your two-year institutions around are doing a fantastic job of recognizing what this does for the workforce. There will be higher need for early childhood educators in the profession, and the governor and the lieutenant governor are thrilled with the work that the folks within the Montana University system, as well as the tribal colleges, are doing to recognize this need and find accessible ways to make this feasible for implementation and to be done well. So we will continue to have conversations with school administrators and educational professionals throughout the state and nationally. We learn from other states what has done, what's worked, what hasn't worked. We are one of 8 states that has not yet implemented any type of public pre-K, so we have the benefit of learning from the 42 other states that have done it. Big challenges, but lots of opportunity to serve our children and help them be college ready eventually. Lots of exciting things going on in education, and again, kudos to you. Thanks for you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien, for that great report. Please give our regards to the governor, our former colleague, Lieutenant Governor McLean, and thank them for their support of public higher education throughout Montana and public education in general in our state. And thank you for being here again. We're now going to move on the agenda to our two-year committee. And I would let everyone know that we will be handling this committee a little bit differently than we typically do, and out of sync with what we're going to be doing with the other committees, because Regent Krause will not be here tomorrow, and the second day of our agenda is typically when we take action on these items. We will be taking action on the items associated with the two-year committee today at the end of this particular presentation related to two-year education. So, Regent Krause.
Well, thank you, Chair Tuss, and also thank you for the opportunity to chair this committee again. Thanks to the members of the committee, Bill Johnstone, Mariah Williams, and Major Robinson for volunteering, if that's the word, to be on this committee. I would say in Montana, this is still, I think, an unrealized opportunity. In other states, two-year college is a proven path to success, well publicized, well accepted. We're still trying to manage that mission and that message. It's great to have the student regent from UM, because the most I think impressive physical example of our dedication to the two-year mission is going up on your campus, although I don't know how much ground's been moved around yet, but Missoula College is really going to be a lighthouse for that mission, the new Missoula College. I would just tell you that each of you individually really do have a chance to make a difference in this two-year mission. You really do, and we just heard about Dr. Good, very good over there, and all of the work that he did up at for the two-year college and up at Missoula College. very inspirational example. And the last time I think I was on this campus, I was with Dr. Seck. We were in Leadership, Montana. I don't believe this building existed at that time. So, you know, the dedication of Dr. Seck, very good. People that have gone before us, former Governor Schweitzer or whatever, I can't remember her title, but I'm just going to call her the Commissioner of Two-Year Education, Mary Moe, and how she moved this forward. These are individuals who really made a difference, and my personal inspiration for the, you know, getting on board with this was not Dr. Seck, who pounded away at us for a year at Leadership Montana about this, but Jane Karras back here at Flathead and her incredible programs at Flathead Community College. You can make a difference in this mission, and the fastest growing and the biggest piece of the pie, two-year education, one-year certificates, this stuff that we're talking about here, this committee can really make a difference in this mission, and so I hope that you will enthusiastically join us. We also have the benefit of having a great staff member, Dr. Seck, to help us out with this stuff. I'm going to turn the meeting over to him a little bit, just to say that we're going to talk about what our goals are for the fiscal year 15. But first, we're going to start with looking at our goals last year and how we did with those. Dr. Seck.
Thank you, Regent Kraus, members of the board. Before I do that, I would just like to take a moment and follow President Engstrom's recognition of Dean Good. It's been a pleasure working with Dean Good for the past 9 years, and I think few people have displayed the enthusiasm and passion about two-year education better than Dean Good. So Barry, we are going to miss you, and I can't imagine a better way to retire than with the groundbreaking of Missoula College. So again, thank you for your service.
We're not going to.
The two-year committee on the conference call did ask for as the chairman mentioned, for a brief recap on the accomplishments of the work plan from last year. And I'll run through these very, very quickly, but the first focus of the work plan from last year was implementation of the developmental education reform recommendations. And as far as the accomplishments go, the commissioner implemented a DevEd Council, which has been up and going now for a year following the task force. Metrics for long-term tracking of DevEd students have been approved and implemented following Complete College Montana metrics. This one was exciting. Montana, and I think due to a lot of the work of this council and this effort, Montana was selected by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation last year to participate in their post-secondary initiative. And two of the things we're focusing on there are the scaling of Ed Ready, which we'll talk more about later, and also prior learning assessment. And then that's really a work of both 2-year and 4-year. The Math Pathways Initiative was begun. The second goal in our plan last year was improving university transfer through the tuning process. This effort was really exciting, and we had representation from the colleges of business at MSU, U of M, MSU Billings, Montana Tech, working in conjunction with 6 2-year colleges, and developed program-level competencies for what it means to earn a 2-year and a 4-year business degree in the state. And changes were actually implemented. Curriculum changes began at the May Board of Regents meeting, which was very exciting. Workforce development, we spent a fair bit of time earlier today talking about SWAMI. I won't repeat that, but working with the University of Montana and Missoula College, we submitted a $20 million grant on TAC 4. We hopefully will hear something soon. Focused on healthcare workforce training, and that's a 15-member consortium. We also have been, the commissioner created a prior learning assessment task force That work, led by Susan Jones, has been accomplishing great work, and we received a supplemental grant from the Kale and Lumina Foundation on that. The fourth area of focus is growth and enhancement of dual enrollment opportunities. We spent a lot of time talking about that, and Ms. Williams, whom I'll introduce in a moment, will spend more time, so I won't get into that too much. But I think we're making a lot of progress there, and the action this board took in altering Policy 730 in May was significant. The fifth area of focus last year was establishing two-year education metrics for performance-based funding, working with the two-year leaders across the state. Dean Wolf and I co-chaired that task force. We did that. And then ongoing initiatives, the 7 two-year campuses within the Montana University system have been working hard on their mission expansion efforts. I've made a site visit to 6 of those 7 campuses this summer, with the 7th coming up. And then the final one deals with basically our work in partnerships and growing partnerships. And you'll hear later today about our partnerships with the Office of Public Instruction. And I would also like to just emphasize very, very strong partnerships with the Montana Department of Labor and Industry and with business and industry across the state. So, Mr. Chair, that covers our accomplishments from last year.
Thank you very much. Were there any questions about that? Questions? I appreciate us adopting this format. Thank you. Also, thanks to Commissioner Christian and you, John, especially all the staff of OCHI. And I think a huge shout out to the leadership and participation of all the two-year campuses, without which we would have not accomplished those things.
Absolutely.
Right? When I say we accomplished them, I'm going to say OCHI and this leadership on the individual campuses that stepped forward. And we talked about Susan Wolf's leadership on the $25 million Swami grant, but all of these things are rising up out of the two-year campuses. We will move on then to the next item, which is this year's work plan.
Absolutely, and I'll just add to that, the 7 two-year campuses, the 3 community colleges, and our tribal college partners have all been involved and working very hard on those initiatives, so they deserve the total credit. The work plan for this year, following a similar format to last year, the first area of focus being developmental education goals. This board will receive in the ARSA committee tomorrow recommendations from the DevEd Council for moving the task force recommendations forward, and Dr. Moisey will be sharing those if we have time in this committee. The scaling of Ed Ready, thanks to the grant from the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, is a very key piece of what we're working on. And in the DevEd Council, I'll have a brief report from Bob Curry to share with you. Great progress. Continuing our work as a council and bringing policy recommendations to this board through this year, including policy recommendations related to common statewide placement for math, is something that you will be seeing later on this year. And then the work that Dr. Moisey is leading with Math Pathways is, again, a joint 2-year, 4-year goal. The second area of focus, growth and enhancement of dual enrollment opportunities. Again, I'm going to defer that, much of that discussion until a few minutes from now, but very briefly, I can just say we want to have dual enrollment opportunities available in every high school in the state of Montana, taught by qualified high school instructors. We want to create and increase statewide awareness of what we're doing. We want to work with the universities to increase graduate opportunities for high school teachers who want to continue with their education. And we are going to present to this board revisions to the dual enrollment guidelines, which were approved way back in 2010. So you will be hearing more about that in a few minutes, but those are the high points. The third area of focus is really focusing on workforce development as it relates to Main Street, Montana. Dr. O'Brien covered a lot of that, but we are working very hard, all of the two-year CEOs, presidents, and deans, to identify and capture what they're doing as related to Pillar 1, train and educate tomorrow's workforce today, and to make sure that the governor's office has that. We are also working, as you heard earlier today, to refine our curriculum so that it's more stacked credentials, integrating things such as credit for prior learning and flexible delivery. Industry engagement is at the forefront of everything that we are doing, and we are working very hard to secure additional resources to move this initiative forward. The Department of Labor is one, but we're also looking at other grant opportunities. Focus area 4, implementing the two-year metrics that we identified last year, working with Deputy Commissioner Trevor and the performance-based funding steering committee on that. Focus area 5, as you will hear in a few moments, an update on our Carl Perkins program. We receive about $5.1 million a year from the U.S. Department of Education. The Commissioner's Office is the lead agency for that. We work in tandem with the Office of Public Instruction. We are probably going to have to submit a plan for reauthorization within the next 2 years. So we're getting started on that. You will hear more about that today. And then ongoing efforts that we are working on, continued comprehensive mission expansion and integration with the 7 colleges, our K-12 high school to college pathways, and then our continued work with two-year education branding and rebranding. I had the pleasure of participating in the focus groups across the state this summer with Main Street, Montana, and the thing that we heard over and over again, we still have a lot of work to do about creating public awareness about what we have in Montana with respect to our public two-year and community colleges and tribal colleges, and helping to create those linkages both with high schools, business, and industries. We're doing great work, but we just have more work to do to create awareness across the state. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my summary.
Thank you. So questions for us about this work plan. I know it's a lot of jargon. I know it's a lot of programs. Is there something you don't see on there, or something that you see on there that you're wondering why it's in this committee or on this program? Questions about this? Then to the committee. Oh, yes, Major Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have, I think just a recommendation as we look at the different focus areas that we have. I think it's great to have that mapped out. We should be accountable in our committee actions and what we're trying to accomplish, and I think that the 2-year has set a good standard for that. And it is good to kind of go back and revisit on an annual basis to see how did we do. I think we expect that from the institutions as well, and we should expect it from ourselves. I think in area 4, I think we need to take a look at the focus number 4 of establishing of 2-year education metrics for performance-based funding. I know that we're going to be talking about this a bit, but I think in comparison to some of the other efforts that we're working on, this one, I think we can expand upon that a little bit and really kind of set some type of standards that we're trying to accomplish, at least within this 1 year. So that would be my my expectation.
Thank you. You can get pretty far down the line and forget to measure once in a while, right? So we'll try to keep that in mind. Yes, Regent Albrecht.
Chair Kraus and Deputy Commissioner Seck, I'd like to know your perspective on how nimble you feel we have the ability to be within our two-year institutions to be able to respond fairly quickly to what those workforce needs are, for example. I think with such a changing environment and a specific focus in the two-year area, that we need to be able to respond, especially in support of the ability to be nimble. And if there are some barriers there, I would hope that the committee would bring those to our attention, as well as all of the institutions, so that we are not part of the problem of a barrier. And so, can you talk to that at all?
Regent Albrecht, Chairman Kraus, members of the board, that's a great question. We're a very big state geographically, but we are a very small state. So I think the thing that allows us to be nimble and responsive is that we are such a small state, and we can pick up the phone and call each other, talk to each other, and work things out. As we look at something as massive as implementing the SWAMI grant, sure, there have been some potholes and some things that we've had to work out, but I think the thing that we're really good at is talking to each other and not just sending emails, but picking up the phone and talking through. So I think from that perspective, we are nimble. I think that we also have some real advantages that other states don't have, in that both the two-year side of the house and the four-year university side of the house are under the same board and under the same commissioners. So, as we're looking at things, if we're looking at ways to develop pathways, that helps a lot. I mean, I can talk with either Dr. Moisey or the commissioner or whatever and get things done that other states, frankly, I think would have a very difficult time doing. So, and then I think the last thing in being nimble, I mean, often is tied to funding, and we're just in Montana, I think we're very creative on how we find funding, whether it's how we use our Perkins funds or how we pursue Department of Labor grants or private foundations. I think we really work hard to find the funding to get things going.
I thought I'd answer that a little bit too, and yeah, I'll probably start with money a little bit, and that is, we do sort of, we slow things down because, of the centralized funding structure, and yet I would say, on the other hand, we have a pretty strong charge to these folks back here, right, that are to go out and ask, right, to go out and ask the employers in their area and the employers in the state, what do we need? What are you expecting out of, particularly in the community colleges do a great job of that, right? Because they're taxing themselves to do this in a significant way and have a little better funding, but they're going out and asking, what do our employers need and how do we solve that? I think we need to make sure we're doing that as well, and you've seen it in Great Falls, I think, in particular, how that worked really well, not to slight anyone else. I think the Main Street Montana project is okay, so I'm going to use like a thing, but if we knew, if we cherry picked just the employers that came to Main Street Montana and provided their advice and said, this is what you need to do, and we knew who those people were and said, okay, you came to us and said, educate tomorrow's workforce today, you, so-and-so individually, and we had outreach to that, then so being proactive, I think, is one of those ways we stay nimble, because they know what they want out there. They may not feel like coming to us, and we need to ask them about that. So going out and asking, I think, is a big deal, Doctor. Yes.
And you raised a good point, and I'll just share one other example, Regent Albrecht. Earlier this summer, we received some calls and interest from the manufacturing community in Lewistown. And in fact, I didn't realize that Lewistown had the robust manufacturing set of industries that they do, but they do. They have actually over 500 people employed in manufacturing-related industries in that area. So, but they have no training there for that. And so working with Dean Wolf and the two-year colleagues from Miles to Flathead and everything in between, we have a meeting set up in Lewistown on October 6th with those industry members. And we're going to roll up our sleeves and look at how we can leverage some of the resources we have to bring some workforce training at a tier 1 level to help meet some of the needs in that local community.
I think another thing that the two-year schools do and the community colleges is they in my observation over the last couple of years is they recognize when a program's time has come and gone and the need to refocus their resources somewhere else. And part of that probably has to do with just the challenge of their resource base, right? Some of that has been in response to what's going on financially for them, but we have seen that some, and I think we as Regents need to encourage that as well. That do you have a program whose time has come and gone? And of course we tend to fossilize or that programs just go and go and go, and it does take some leadership to say, you know what I'm talking about, yeah, that boy, we have something that offers more to the residents, and I would just encourage everybody, right, to take a look at that. But I think that's one of the places we can't promise, unlimited resources. So prioritization is one of those places as well. Find some of those resources in that area.
Chair Kraus?
Yes.
Only you could come up with the metaphor fossilizing, but
I got the tie.
As somebody that spent a lot of time on Main Street, Montana, I think some of these comments are very appropriate. I think one of the concerns that we had was the economy is very dynamic. It changes very quickly, more quickly now than it has in the past. And so if we're going to get involved in workforce development, how can we be responsive? And frankly, how can we stay out in front of it? And if I look at some of what I've seen here, I'm a bit concerned that we not fight the last war here. I mean, we've got a lot of welding programs. But the other thing that we talked about in Main Street, Montana, when we looked at other countries that seem to do this maybe better than we do, was the opportunity to promote and develop more apprenticeship programs. That historically has not, I think, been done by the educational community. And as you look at developing responses to workforce opportunities, I would encourage you to think about whether we can play a role in that, and if so, what is it and how can we do it?
Regent Johnstone, Chairman Kraus, that's a very good point. In fact, we've been working very closely with Commissioner Pam Busey, Commissioner of the Department of Labor and Industry, to look for those opportunities and to also look at how our two-year colleges can provide the classroom training for the apprenticeship programs. Which in the past, some of the apprenticeship classroom training has actually been done outside of North Dakota, of a school in North Dakota. So we're working on that and looking for ways that we can really leverage our resources to move that forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Johnstone. Regent Tuss.
Thank you, Chair Kraus. My question is similar to what Regent Robinson was talking about with regard to focus number 4. And the performance-based funding model, and how perhaps the two-year piece of what we do differs from what those metrics may look like for the other pieces of the university system. And maybe there is no difference, but I'm just curious about the dialogue that's taken place so far and whether or not those different things have been identified.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of dialogue at the campus level, at the faculty, department chair level across the state. And so we're going back to the two-year mission, which this board approved, and looking at how those metrics really relate to the two-year mission, which has 5 tenets: university transfer, workforce development, developmental education, lifelong learning, and community development. So I think the metrics that have come together really focused in on those.
And you know, we heard some really good metrics today from Mark Nook, so you can see how they work, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And a follow-up that has nothing to do with my previous question. I noticed a phrase in here that I've never seen before, Emporium-style initiative. Can you tell me what an Emporium-style initiative is?
Yeah. Basically, Ed Ready, which we've been working on, is an Emporium-style initiative in that the software is very flexible to address the needs of the students. So if the student has a need focusing on becoming ready for college algebra or becoming ready for college statistics or whatever the case may be, then the software is flexible enough to adapt to the needs of that student and where their weaknesses are.
Yes, Regent Robinson.
Thank you, Chair Kress. Again, expanding on focus number 4, I was thinking about that too, and I appreciate you mentioning that, Paul. I think if we certainly want to borrow what's already been worked on is good, but also what is being developed as we speak now with performance-based funding. I think we need to at least, I see in this work plan, start to outline what some of those efforts are that we're trying to do within our 2-year system. Whether it be, I know there's been discussion about increasing the number of certificates and what the governor's committed to and what we've committed to. How does that factor into it? The underrepresented population that we've talked about, and how does that actually, because I know that a lot of those students are within our 2-year system. And so if we kind of start to expand upon this, John, I think it would be helpful for us to see how does this effort align with what else is going on, whether it be with SWAMI, whether it be with Main Street Montana. I think once we start to define it for ourselves, then we can find those connections. And I think they already exist, absolutely, as you pointed out a few. But I think if we really take a look at this and identify some, I think that we're doing ourselves a favor.
Mr. Chair, Regent Robinson, absolutely, and we can provide an update on that in November if you would like.
That'd be good. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments, not just from the Regents, but anyone else sitting around the table? Okay, well, then, unless I hear an objection, I will go ahead and recommend that we move this forward for action. And I wasn't exactly following how we were going to do it. Do you want to take it's the only action item. Should we take action item as a board? And would you like to lead that?
Yeah, I think we should probably do that, given it's fresh in our mind right now, if that's okay with you,
and then,
Chair Krause.
Yes, it would. And so I'm going to turn the meeting back to you, and I'm going to make a motion for the board to approve the action plan for the 2-year education and community college committee for FY15.
Thank you, Chair Krause. Are there any comments or questions from the board about this action item? Any comments or questions? Are there any comments or questions from the campuses?
Yeah, sorry. I would just say one thing, which is incorporating, I would incorporate the comments particularly regarding focus number 4 into that motion.
Any public comment about this item? Any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Then we will move on to information items, and the first one is one that we've spent a lot of time on, that the governor has spent a lot of time on, the commissioner has, and that is dual credit for credit. Dr. Sack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to echo appreciation to the governor and the lieutenant governor for their incredible support of this initiative. It's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Amy Williams to the podium with the action that was taken at the May Board of Regents meeting, and following just within a week or so after that, the Commissioner did decide that we needed to have someone who was really focusing attention on this. And so thanks to our good friends at Montana State University and Gallatin College, we were able to secure half of Amy Williams' time. So welcome aboard, Amy.
Thank you. It's good to be here and great to have the opportunity to update the Board of Regents on dual credit. Deputy Commissioner Seck stole a little bit of my thunder. I've intended to keep my comments brief. I've submitted to you a substantial report with a lot of detail, and I'm happy to field comments and questions at the end. May was an exciting month for dual credit, as many of you know. We are seeing a lot of substantial growth across the state as a result. As Deputy Commissioner Seck highlighted, your action on Board of Regents Policy 730 in creating a temporary waiver option for master's prepared students or teachers that perhaps lack the 9 graduate credits and want to advance into concurrent enrollment in the high school has created substantial interest in this and growth. We have teachers already operating under temporary waivers as of this fall. Additionally, in May, we had that exciting announcement of the partnership between the Governor's Office and the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education that created the Dual Credit Incentive Program and rolled into that the exciting and innovative Credit for Credit coupon. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with this or maybe need a refresher on that, I'll recap that. This program, and it's a collaborative endeavor and has been promoted widely and deeply across the state, offers a reward to high school educators teaching dual credit in the mode of concurrent enrollment. So they're delivering college credit in the high school classroom. And so for every college credit that this educator teaches, they receive a credit for credit coupon of equal value. They can use their coupon at any college or university or MUS college, university, or tribal college in the state. The educators can choose to use the coupons for themselves, or they can choose to give them to someone else that they want to empower with access to higher education. And let me tell you, I talked to a lot of educators. This is probably one of the most popular pieces of this program, incentivizing it, but also creating options. Some teachers are looking for the grad credits, some of them already have it. Either way, it's a very clear reward and incentive for these teachers. So both of these shifts that initiated in May have driven a lot of interest and growth in concurrent enrollment in particular. This is happening in our rural, in our urban and suburban settings across the state of Montana. And it's keeping your dual credit coordinators very, very busy, and they're doing a lot of hard work across the state, and they deserve a lot of the kudos for this, because anyone who works in dual credit knows that it is full of relationship building, nuance, and understanding and interpreting guidelines as well. So both of these shifts have driven growth, and because of the needs of the state and the Montana University system, and as well as the high impact related to this program, OCHI had the foresight to create a position to oversee and facilitate the rollout of the Credit for Credit coupons, as well as help oversee the dual credit program for the state of Montana. And I've been serving in that capacity since June 6th. So I'd like to share with you some of the accomplishments we've had since June, and then talk about the goals for the next months. Very briefly, we've done a complete redesign and revamp of the Dual Credit Incentive Program website. It was a static landing page initially. Now it is a streamlined communications interactive slider modernized piece. If you have not had the opportunity to check it out, please do. You can find it at mus.edu/dual credit. Also, as you may imagine, the logistical preparations for the rollout of this very detail-oriented program with relationship to the Credit for Credit program have taken a lot of backside coordination. So we have biweekly meetings with OCHI staff and guaranteed student loan staff that are working on the logistics, coordinating, communicating with our campus, making sure that people know the parts and pieces that need to be in place and understand how this is going to look and feel when this rollout occurs. And we've got December as the target date for the first issuing of the credit for credit coupons, which is very exciting. And obviously that work is not just limited to the summer, it is ongoing. Also, I've put a lot of work into substantially increasing communications amongst the dual credit coordinators across the state. This is something that was not previously existing. So we have bi-weekly conference calls. These conference calls run the gamut from discussing logistics of the rollout of the program, what they need to do, and what they need to communicate amongst their campuses and who they need to be communicating with. They also talk about sharing of best practices. We share about how we run our programs in the state. We talk about philosophical things like where we see growth and where we see need for growth in the state. We talk about how we manage growth in our programs. So it's been a very valuable resource, and I think the biggest highlight of that is the fact that the duration of those conference calls are 30 minutes or less. Our shortest, I think, was 9 minutes. Our longest was 32 or 34. So they're well subscribed, and people get a lot out of them. And I have to say that these are fantastic people that I have the good fortune to work with. Like I said, they are driving and managing this growth. It's not just one person, and it's not just one organization. Last but not least, as far as what's been wrapped up since June, with these teachers operating under temporary waivers and seeking 9 grad credits to fulfill that and move forward with their careers as concurrent enrollment instructors, I thought it would be very important to do an assessment of grad credit availability in the MUS, particularly because we want to be seen as their first source for grad credits. So some of them are going to be coming to us with credit for credit coupons in hand. So that grad credit availability survey was completed as of last week. I'll readdress that in a moment when we talk about things moving forward. So goals for the next month. A major piece is communications and outreach. As much as we love dual credit, dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, it is not as well known as we need it to be. It is an outstanding opportunity for students, and we need more to know about that. The dual credit incentive program is an outstanding opportunity for instructors engaging in concurrent enrollment, and you as a board have made options available for a lot more instructors to engage and participate in that. So I've done a lot of work this summer communicating that. I've got a lot of work ahead of me, and OCHI as a team has a lot of work ahead of us as a team to go forward and communicate that. So starting in October at the MEA, the State Educators Conferences, Conference, and Montana ACTE, which is the Association of Career Technical Educators, which is the companion meeting to MEA. The third week in October, I'll be occupying booths and presenting at one, if not both of those conferences on the dual credit incentive program and communicating to the state's educators in both our potential pool of Gen Ed concurrent enrollment instructors and our potential pool of CTE concurrent enrollment instructors. So making sure everybody knows about this program and the clear value it presents to them. In addition to that, I just very recently was, I think a day ago, contacted by OPI, and we'll be participating in a webinar with OPI prior to MEA, and this is a great coordination between OCHI and OPI. They'll be informing teachers, administrators, and counselors about concurrent enrollment in general. So we'll do a webinar with that, and then we'll follow it up in November and December with an event that we already had planned, which is called the eBlast series. And this is coordinated by Montana Digital Professional Learning Network, which is a group of MTDA, the Montana Digital Academy. And these are short, content-driven, interactive webinars. They're 30 minutes long. 20 minutes of that is a topic, and it's presented by either, probably me for the most part, but then also guest presenters speaking on different topics, and then there's 10 minutes for Q&A as well. So the information that will be covered will run the gamut from dual credit incentive program, but it will also include things like the most commonly asked questions that come out of administrators and teachers and counselors about dual credit, so that when they look at where they want to go as far as establishing a concurrent enrollment program, or augmenting their existing or looking at their future goals, they'll feel armed with the knowledge that they need to be communicating or they need to have in order to effectively communicate with their two-year partner. So last but not least, and very significant, is the communications piece in the digital era with our students, parents, also teachers, counselors, administrators, industry, nonprofits, and other stakeholders. OCHI has a website about dual credit, dual enrollment, but it is fairly static, and so we need to do a relaunch and a revamp of that website like we did with the dual credit incentive program, so that teachers, parents, students, all can see very clear, streamlined information about the value inherent in this program, how they can get engaged with it, and where they can maximize the benefit for them and then take it when they pursue post-secondary. So that kind of wraps up the communications part of it, and there are other pieces that Deputy Commissioner Seck touched on. We'd like to finalize and bring before you by the May meeting a revised copy of the MUS dual enrollment guidelines. We've got a lot of great input from the dual credit task force, so that's on the docket. And then also collecting data. We're doing more and better data collection on concurrent enrollment courses. So I've been working with Deputy Commissioner Trevor on drilling down into the data so that we have better long-term tracking on these students. And then also, last but not least, I spoke about the grad credit availability survey. What I've learned from this grad credit availability survey is that in the MUS we've got bright spots and we've got deficits as far as providing content to teachers that is available to them, that's focused towards them, that's available to them because it's not gated by prerequisites, and is available to them and amenable to them with respect to their day jobs. So we've got areas that we need to fill in, and the first thing that I did when I found out about some of those deficits is got on the phone and started talking to our four-year campuses. We've got interest preliminarily from 2 of the four-year campuses in developing teacher-targeted content that is either face-to-face on a summer or evening schedule or online content. So that's in the works, and I'm sure you'll hear more about it later. But throughout that process, as we develop that coursework, I'll be involved as needed and as they want my input, because it's important to make sure that the credits that are developed are relevant and will help these teachers satisfy the 9 grad credit requirement. It's an ambitious agenda, but it's all good work to do, and I have a great team of dual credit coordinators that I'm fortunate to work with, and we have great partners across the state in our 2- and 4-year campuses. So I'm happy to field questions.
Questions from the board?
Chairman, Chair Kraus.
Yes.
Amy, in several years down the road, what will be the principal measures of success? How will you measure success of this?
Were you on the conference call or not?
Yeah. I've been on a lot of conference calls, but not that one.
I stated this on the conference call. I think that success begins and ends with students, and I think that that means that we're creating particularly when we're talking about concurrent enrollment, that we create realistic models of the rigor of college in the high school classroom, because that is based on research and, from a common sense gut level standpoint, that is what creates the successful transition for students. So I see that as one of the things that our concurrent or dual enrollment coordinators work most rigorously on, is conveying that, working with our high school partners so that that is clear. So student success, I would say, is first and primary focus. I would say increased number of students engaging in post-secondary education. I know that aligns very well with the governor's initiative. And I would say also students exploring, particularly in student groups that are difficult to engage in post-secondary education or have not looked at post-secondary or didn't think that they were going to college, I would say growth in those student areas of engagement post-secondary. Then there are the hot button topics of time to completion of degree. We know dual credit courses can be used effectively to reduce time of completion. And then the biggest looming elephant in the room, which is cost of completion. So students that can take some of those courses off of their plate at a very substantial reduced rate will have that much more of an advantage when they start looking at their financial aid package.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
Chair.
Yes.
Chair Kraus, I'm delighted to see that you have a focus on marketing the initiative, because I think that at this point, it's obviously, we're very excited about it. There's a lot of things we're excited about, but that doesn't matter. It needs to be out there and accessible and to all, so that those teachers know about it. So do you have, sort of segueing from Regent Johnstone's question, do you have a way of sort of measuring that teachers throughout the state are aware of this incentive and are whether or not they're accessing it?
So I would say primarily the dual credit coordinators are going to be the first go-to. They're the ones that are going to hear from the school districts. I think primarily we're going to see growth. That's going to be how we're going to measure whether people are hearing about this program. And then that growth eventually is going to plateau until we start getting more and more prepared teachers entering the workforce, or at least increasing the level of preparedness in the workforce. And then continued consistent outreach efforts, so that they're so tired of hearing about this that they, oh, I don't know what that is. I've got 6 colleagues that are engaging in that, and we've got so many credit for credit coupons we don't know what to do with. We're creating a scholarship fund at our high school out of our credit for credit coupons. I think that concerted effort long-term is really what's necessary on this, and I think that starts with clear messaging, because as I've worked in dual credit, it's very easy to get bogged down in the details. If you're this type of teacher, you need this, this, and this. If you're CTE, you need this, this, and this. But that's not what the end user needs. They need a very clear message that they can grab onto, get interested in, and buy in at a deeper level to do the more investigatory work.
Commissioner Christian.
Chair Kraus, Regent Johnstone, Regent Albrecht, that's a great question, sort of where we think we're headed with this. And, I believe it's sort of a process, and the first step in this is to sort of build the framework that we need to get where we want to go. And I don't believe that framework really, truly existed when it comes to concurrent enrollment. I think hiring Amy was really a great first step for us. I think we're trying to work to expand the pool of teachers that are available in the K-12 system this fall. I think we're working to expand the courses that are available, and then ultimately, when we started this in May, most high school students had already signed up for courses for the fall semester. Most of that happens March and April. So working with the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor's office, we fully intend to, somewhere around the first of the year, start a much broader outreach toward parents. And they're graciously willing to help with that as well, and have talked to some consultants already about how we could generate a bit more outreach and buzz around that initiative at the household level. Ultimately, we've got to get students and parents that know about these programs and that are asking, what is it? What do I need to do? I think the counselors can fill in that void and say, yeah, here's the coursework, but ultimately it's got to become, as Amy was saying, sort of a household norm, and that process I don't believe could get ahead of sort of building the infrastructure that we need to get there. So I think that's where we're headed. I quite candidly hope that we will see impressive utilization of this program when we get into the spring sign up for next fall's courses. I think that's when ultimately we'll see sort of the impacts of this effort, both from the Board of Regents, our office, and the Governor's office, moving this thing forward. And on a side note, I was with Lieutenant Governor for the first day of high school in Whitefish. They opened a new school, and already students, we talked a lot about dual enrollment on that back to school tour, and already students asking about dual enrollment. Already teachers that we met with at Flathead Valley Community College that are saying the credit for credit is a great incentive, and those that can't utilize it are already starting to talk about how they could pool those coupons and help students of need that would energize and add enthusiasm to those students to participate in college courses that they probably otherwise wouldn't. So I think we're generating some thoughts around it. Ultimately, it's sort of a few steps, and then we'll get to where I think we can have some real measured success.
So, yeah, from my point of view, it'll be when people stop saying, well, so how's that different from advanced placement? Or where he's already in advanced placement, or that, just making that comparison every time. And so that's what I get whenever I pitch it really hard around the community, is that answer, right? So when we lose that answer, I'm going to say we're making progress. I know it sounds a little flippant, but it'll happen. Regent Robinson.
Thank you, Chair Krause. Amy, I have a couple questions. One, I was wondering if you did this much half-time, how much more can you do when you're full-time? And I know that it really is the team that you've pulled together, and I want to talk about that a little bit. I have a few questions about the dual credit coordinators that you have. I know you touched briefly on that, but could you explain a little bit more? I know you meet with them every other week, and certainly sounds like there's a lot of activity going on, but they're your front of line.
They are.
And I would be curious to know what that makeup is, and what are your plans for how many you have now, and is that growing or not?
So every two-year campus has a dual credit coordinator or someone who is in that capacity coordinating on their campus. And the job and the role of a two-year dual credit coordinator is fairly standard. On most of the campuses, maybe not the majority, but several of the campuses have rolled the positions together with Big Sky Pathways coordinators. And I think that this is a very good, logical hand-in-glove fit, because Big Sky Pathways coordinators are in the schools, communicating with the schools, frequently working with career technical educators, frequently using a document that's comparing the post-secondary and secondary coursework. So that leads very naturally into dual credit discussions. Then they get to know the administrators, they get to be a trusted, value-added piece, an unpaid extra staff in an ideal relationship that is connecting them with industry, that is connecting them with resources, that is connecting them with faculty at the two-year college, sometimes even the four-year college. So that capacity is outstanding. So when they move that relationship forward and they start talking about, okay, how can we add academic pieces, how can we add dual credit pieces, that's really what a coordinator does. Coordinator also is taking calls from administrators that have heard about the dual credit incentive program, and they say, okay, so you're the closest to your college, what do I need to do to take this forward? So that's kind of the role and scope of that. We talk about where the state is going, what it best serves students, things that we should work with students on advising. I think our upcoming September 22nd call is going to have an expert generously ranged from Great Falls, and that is going to be a financial aid expert who's going to talk about the 150% credit cap and how dual credit plays in that, because we see in states that have very advanced dual credit programs like Florida and New York, we see sometimes, not always, but we see sometimes students struggle when they have too many dual credits or credit coming in from a dual credit program. So it's very topic-based, and it's very relevant, and it's conversation-based, and this is great because it's building communication, collaboration, coordination, and it's cohesiveness as well. I went to the national conference, NACEP, National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, and it was enlightening when I went there because suddenly I'm with a bunch of other dual credit coordinators, and frequently it feels very isolated to be the one person on your campus that does this, and suddenly you're at a conference with all of them. Well, now we have that in the state of Montana, and we talk every other week, even if it is by conference call. So that kind of level of cohesiveness, I think, really helps us as we look at moving forward cohesively as a state and as a program, so that we're talking about best practices, alignment of best practices, what we're doing out there to work with our high school partners, to work with our teachers to make them feel supported, to work with high school students to make them feel supported.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm also curious, I was looking in your report here, and it sounds like, is it all of the tribal colleges also have a coordinator as well?
4 tribal colleges are currently doing a mode of dual or concurrent enrollment. They do not, to my knowledge, have a specific vested individual. Most of them are using a collaborative approach with the chief academic officer and the registrar, and we even see that in the MUS in some of our systems. So.
That's great that we're continuing to partner with them in every aspect. Thank you.
It's fabulous.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Williams, I was wondering if the Montana Digital Academy offered any courses for dual credit?
They don't currently, but we are having a meeting, I believe it's October 6th or October 9th, I can't recall, and we're going to work with them on our first offering exclusively on MTDA.
Great, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Dr. Sack.
Mr. Chair, I just want to add, Amy has done an amazing job and doesn't miss an opportunity. This afternoon, she and folks from MSU Billings and I will be joining them or having a meeting with Billings Public Schools and representatives from each of the 3 AA high schools in the Career Center here in Billings to look at the next steps for growing dual enrollment here in Billings this afternoon. So it's my pleasure now to call forward 3 individuals. Mindy Askelson, whom we hired from the Minnesota MSU system this summer, and to lead our post-secondary Carl Perkins program. And TJ Iyer, who is the Division Administrator for Career and Technical Education for the Office of Public Instruction. And Scott Anderson, who is the principal of the Billings Career Center. And they are going to provide this board with a brief update on the Carl Perkins grant, which we administer in the state of Montana, and just give you a sense of the action that's taken place there. And there's actually a fair bit of synergy with what Amy just presented. So, Ms. Askelson.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Regents, thank you for having us here today. We're going to do a quick synopsis of what we're doing with Perkins, and what I would also like you to realize that Perkins also works very closely and very directly with dual credit and also with Big Sky Pathways, which you'll learn a little more about today. So, and also what I'm hoping is that when we're done this presentation today, we can answer some of the questions you had earlier about other funds and other ways that we'll be able to respond to industry very quickly. Because Perkins, that is what Perkins is about, and what Perkins 5 will really be about in the coming future. Just so you know, a quick synopsis of what Perkins is. You can go to the next one, Amy. Perkins basically is a federal, nonpartisan legislation that's designed to fund career and technical education for youth and adults. And that's where I'd like to introduce TJR, who is with OPI, who is my partner in crime and my counterpart with the Perkins initiatives. And then TJ is going to introduce in a couple minutes a guest that we have here with us today to talk about how we're doing this strictly on campuses. So at the post-secondary level, we are using Perkins to combine academics and career and technical education, and also working with students from special populations who may need some extra help or training to get into their career, as well as one of our big pushes is working with students whose gender are not traditional to certain careers. And so what we can do with Perkins at the post-secondary and the secondary level is make sure our students get a lot of information about career education, make sure those middle 50% that we don't often get to, make sure that they have what they need to succeed in college. Funding for Perkins, go ahead Amy, you can. Funding for Perkins is a little confusing sometimes, but what I will say in this portion is, for all you campus presidents and registrars and deans, if you can go back to your campuses, and just one message that we want you to take is make sure you're coding your students correctly, because that's where your money's coming from for Perkins. So sometimes that's just worth the effort. TJ, why don't you go ahead over?
I want to thank Mindy for your introduction. On the secondary side of our funding piece, we have 2 data points that we base our formula funding on. And it goes to almost all schools, 168 secondary schools. And it's based on 2 points. One is 5 to 17-year-olds in poverty, and a general 5 to 17-year-olds enrolled in school, and all that is based upon the 2010 enrollment census that the federal government does for us.
Go ahead, Amy. And then we can go past that one too. Thank you. We got, as John said, we got over $5.1 million last year. It's about the same every year. You'll see how it was divided up. One of the things I want to point out there on that $60,000, that was money that we gave to school districts, we gave to correctional institutions, money to help them get their students back into career and technical education. If you want to go ahead, Amy. At the post-secondary level, we made a conscious decision to really, really focus our efforts on Pathways, a little bit of what Amy talked about. And actually, Pathways is our Carl Perkins in this state. What we're trying to do is we're trying to incorporate the fact with secondary and post-secondary classes so that there is a seamless transition from secondary to post-secondary school. There is non-duplicity, and also that we make sure that there is rigor in the academics so that when the students get to the post-secondary, they can see. Just a quick fact, if you've done a readability statement on any of the career and technical clusters, right now, the highest level of reading required for cosmetology, and this is what the average book is written at, is grade 14. So, and that's a surprise to a lot of people. That's what we're trying to integrate into our pathways so that students are prepared for that. In addition, we're also looking forward to forge some new partnerships with adult education. With the new WEO Act, one of the things that we learned is the ABE will no longer be funded just for students that get their high set, not GED any longer, their high set. They are now going to be funded on students that get their high set and then go on to post-secondary education. So that's going to be a whole new paradigm. So, but ABE is going to be a wonderful partner in post-secondary for some of the great fast-track models that we're seeing from Washington and that we can steal maybe from Minnesota that I got to work in.
Next slide, please. On the secondary side of things, we have three main focuses, and they are based upon college and career readiness for our students. And the second piece is the pathways. And this pathways is what we talk about with technical skill development and transitions. And this Perkins piece of pathways is all about partnerships. And our partnerships with the post-secondary is where our students are getting most of the value for these programs. And that's what I would like to do now, is introduce one of the leaders in career technical education in the state of Montana, and to give us a voice from the field is Scott Anderson. Scott is the principal at the Career Center here in Billings and one of the shining examples of what can really happen when things are done right in career and technical education. Scott?
Good afternoon. I'm obviously privileged to be here as a representative of what actually happens in the high schools and as a correlation between what you have all set aside to accomplish. I can tell you right now that as of this morning, I was having conversations with high school students about dual credit. We are excited about meeting this afternoon to see how things get further embedded into Billings. We have early childhood education opportunities in dual credit, metals manufacturing opportunities in dual credit. We have been working in the last couple of years with Dean Radke's staff here at City College in technical writing and technical math. These are just the beginnings. So it's an exciting time to be a high school student. And it's an exciting time that every one of our high schools here in Billings, working with whether it be MSU, City College, others in this room, we have opportunities, and kids are getting excited, parents are getting excited about what is our future. The program of study concept is extremely important. The literacy and math and CTE is really bringing about the cornerstone of what we're going forward when you talked about workforce development. We heard the governor's office, other information that you've heard already. We believe at the Career Center here, which is just a stone's throw away from this building and sharing a parking lot area and entry, we are serving at least 1,000 students a day through that come from our Billings high schools back and forth between Senior West and Skyview and the Career Center in multiple areas of career and technology. We have early childhood, metals manufacturing, engineering design, biomedical, construction technologies, transportation, urban agriculture, photography, graphic design, illustration, animation, web design, culinary arts, and I said that as quickly as I could. What we need is an incentivization to incentivize these students to go on to the next level. I mean, you talked about that middle kid. We have students that are the high end, we get support and services and they move on. We have students that are title type students that we get tons of support. We are really needing the middle range and that 50% and beyond to get the experiences to get into the college and move on into these fields for the workforce development. Billings is, I think, doing a tremendous job in our community and our workforce development, but we are the cornerstone here at the high school of where do we take these kids? We're the beginning. We're trying to teach kids to get ready for jobs that don't even exist. So how do we get them that lifelong learning capacity? How do we make sure that they are stacked credentials? How do we make sure that they get to the two-year institutions? We need to make sure that they get confidence in where they are. And the idea of the Commissioner's Office and Dr. Seck getting our teachers an opportunity to teach the college readiness and the college concepts and the partnering with the universities so our teachers have confidence in themselves and our students get confidence, you're going to see a movement of students getting into higher education and most importantly, finishing.
We just want to echo that as part of Big Sky Pathways is the same thing as a program of study. So we are working very closely with a lot of our secondary partners. And we've been working really closely with Amy with dual enrollment because we feel that that's going to be a big portion of what our pathway should be. And so last but not least, I just want to share two quick other programs here to highlight, and then we can field some questions. Right now at MSU Northern, they have used their Perkins money in the past to put on a expo or tech expo that is just a phenomenal event where the kids and the students and the teachers get to go and play with all the career stuff and all the stuff that they can see how technical education is really a major part. And the other school I want to do a shout out to is Dawson Miles City, who is a consortium together in the Eastern, and a program that they're working on is they're going to go through and look at those individuals who did not complete their degrees, get them back in there and work with them individually to help them get the classes that they need to complete those degrees. So there are some really good programs coming out of, and every school we have has a great program like that. They just happen to be the first on my list that I grabbed. So if you have any questions, we can answer. I'm sure you have a lot about the Career Center.
Questions for the expert panel? Questions? Yes, Regent Robinson, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I do have a couple questions, and I'll start with Mr. Anderson. I'm curious at the Career Center, what do you track the number of students that move on into post-secondary education at all?
We do make that attempt, and I can tell you that's a very difficult thing to do because it is generally an opt-in survey type environment where are you doing what you said you were going to do and what we hopefully prepared you to do? And that comes back to, do we have the acceptance? So we make the attempt, but clearly that's something we need to work better at.
And what efforts do you have right now to advise them, to work with them in order to encourage that transition to happen?
You know, that's a great question. It's one of the things that you've heard Dr. Seck talk about, the counseling component. We are very aggressive in our district right now trying to work on the Big Sky Pathway and counselors working with our students and getting those students a plan of study through the Big Sky Pathways and moving forward. In fact, one of our lead counselors from Scivey High School, Tina Boone, is organizing an event that brings as many counselors in the next couple of years on a tour statewide of all the two-year institutions. So the emphasis of trying to get those students that are the middle grade students in a pathway. I truly believe you talked about with Amy the marketing concept earlier. What we need to do is we need to reach out into that middle school world, and even in the 5th, 6th grade, really starting to get kids excited about careers and opportunities, and then making sure we have a program of study that fits that need so that they intersect and kids have options as they move.
Is there a component that includes mentorship at all, where some of the former students come back and work with those students that maybe have gone on as well?
Yes. We invite a lot of alumni, or whatever you might say, to come into different programs to come in. For instance, in our engineering pathway is very aggressive into bringing former students coming back and talking about real life situations. Our health professionals, very active. Our community is very supportive, and not only if they are in the field, coming in, advisory boards and so on. Yes.
Thank you, Regent Robinson. Other questions?
Chair Kraus?
Yes.
I just
Regent
had
Johnson.
one relative to, so you spent, or you had about $5 million this year. Do you account for how that's spent with respect to the 7 or 8 purposes for which the money can be spent? Can you describe that? And then periodically, do you evaluate whether particular expenditures are effective or not?
Yeah, we have a very, very structured and strict reporting guidelines. And each one of our colleges ties their action items to a specific, we call them indicators. And basically what we're looking for is retention, academic attainment, graduation, placement, and then placement in careers not traditional to genders. And we do a very in-depth report every year to the federal government per indicator, how much we spent and what the outcomes are. Right now we're working very hard to tie our indicators back to not actions that we've done, but real outcomes. So instead of saying we had 600 people show up at the career fair, what we can say of the 600 people that showed up, 350 enrolled in these 7 career programs. So that's the level of specificity we're going to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Johnstone. Any other questions from the board? Thank you so much for coming today. Very good. Yes. Dr. Seck.
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank our panel and just underscore the example of partnerships between our two-year colleges, community colleges, tribal colleges, the Office of Public Instruction, and I would also add they weren't here today, but the Montana Department of Labor and Industry is also a big partner with our Perkins efforts.
Thank you. So we have one last
The last item, and I'll make this very, very short, is an update from Bob Curry at the Montana Digital Academy on Ed Ready rollout, and this is very exciting. I did provide each of you with a handout since Mr. Curry just sent this last night. But basically, Ed Ready, so far this fall, as of September 12th actually, has already impacted about 976 students, which is significant. 773 of those are in our colleges, 148 in our high schools, 42 are unaffiliated, probably more tied with home schools, and 13 are with the adult basic education programs. And we have some great examples going on with how Ed Ready is being implemented, whether it's placement prep example from MSU and Gallatin College and U of M, or used concurrently with math courses, as is happening at Highlands College and Montana Western, or as a placement assessment pilot to be launched in September at the University of Montana. There's some great things happening. Bob also wanted me to share with you that he's working with Chief Dull Knife College and Anna Nakota College to get them involved and get it up and going.
John, can you tell me what ABE is again?
Adult Basic Education.
Thanks.
I also would like to recognize the support from Chancellor Bobby Evans, who made a direct contact for us with Dr. John Matt, who is the chair of the Department of Educational Leadership at the University of Montana. As you know, through our Bill and Melinda Gates grant, they're very interested in systemic transformation, how this EdReady project is really going to be scaled on a system-wide level, both at higher education and in the secondary schools. And so Dr. Matt and his team, his entire team, are taking this on with some support from the Gates Foundation to provide a case study, and a case study that's really going to be focusing on Montana, how this is being scaled, and the lessons learned. And the results of this case study will be ultimately shared via the Gates Foundation across the country, because we want other states to learn from Montana on how something like EdReady can be scaled nationwide. So Chancellor Evans, thank you for that connection. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Well, thank you. Are there any questions about EdReady for what you heard today? Yes, President Engstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a comment and then a question as well. On the EdReady, I just want us to reinforce our recognition of the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation with the $2.4 million grant that they made to help EdReady through its implementation. So I just wanted to make that comment. And then secondly, I had a question actually about the dual credit. I was under the impression that the Montana Digital Academy did indeed offer some dual credit courses. Am I wrong on that? The answer earlier was that they didn't.
President Engstrom, Mr. Chair, the Digital Academy is working to actually launch its first dual credit course, which will be a dual credit course in computing. And they're working with one of our colleges on that. And so that's the start of what will hopefully be a multiple number of courses. But they do offer, they have not offered specifically Digital Academy dual credit courses, as I understand before.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Seck. Are campuses doing that on their own? Because I thought we had a discussion going back even to Mary Moe about.
I think I understand your question. Yes, the Digital Academy is serving as the storefront for online dual credit classes that each of the campuses are offering. So the Digital Academy is listing those courses, and those courses are available across the state. So our campuses are offering those as online courses. And thank you for your point about the $2.4 million gift from the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, because that is responsible for the statewide scaling of EdReady. The support from the Gates was focused on funding the actual case study, but the actual heavy lifting as far as scaling that statewide is from the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation.
Thank you, President Engstrom. Any other comments or questions from the board? Is there any public comment regarding two-year and community college? Any public comment for this committee? Any public comment? Seeing none, I will close the public comment, and hearing no objection, I'll close the committee and turn it back to you, Chairman Tuss, at 12:17.
Burned up almost that whole hour. Thank you, Regent Krause.
Almost being the, yeah.
What we're going to do now is we will recess for lunch. We're recessing about 10 minutes ahead of where we were on the schedule. So why don't we all try to be back here at about 1:20, and let's begin the afternoon session at 1:20. We'll stand in recess. Thank you.